Princess Libercia was your typical villainess, created solely to torment the hero and heroine. In the end, she died after enduring horrific torture for who knows how long. The Crown Prince even had the audacity to say there was no need to be sad since she was going to die young anyway. Our protagonist felt like throwing up while reading that. Seriously, right? She kept reading, but remained completely incredulous. The story focuses on the love between Lavrov and Ariel, with that innocent appearance that charms everyone. In the end, the villainess is defeated and Ariel gets exactly what she wanted: a happy marriage with the prince. If it had stopped at the wedding, it would have been fine, but everyone dies. Wait, I think we have an Akame ga kill reference here. The villainess dying is one thing, but several important characters died for nothing. The main couple manages to be the worst of them all. Disappointed, she tore the whole book apart, but even that didn't calm her rage. Everything changes when, on a beautiful summer day, our young lady simply wakes up in bed already inside Libercia's body. And damn, Princess Libercia was gorgeous, wasn't she? I don't think I'd turn down the position. She always had a soft spot for Libercia because of her beauty, composure, and dignity. But what really won her over for good was the villainess's last scene in the book. It was that moment when the villainess spoke her final words, stating that she had been a princess since birth and would remain one until she died. Libercia vented that she never had anyone to love her and that people had called her a villainess since the day she was born, even when she did nothing. The blame for all of this lay with her mother, Lijen Vance. Now she is the true villain, the woman who forced her own daughter to suffer everyone's prejudice. It's the kind of painful life that Ariel would never be able to understand. Libercia even dropped some truth. It's better to die as a villainess than to die as a pathetic, sick girl. That's why she did what she did and even found it amusing. At least that way, everyone would know her for her role as a villainess and not for the weakness of her illness. That's right, she was a terminal patient. To top it all off, Libercia said that none of it was because of Ariel, but rather because of her own choices and that she had no regrets. Man, this woman is the real boss. Wow, what a beautiful woman. I want her. And that was exactly when Princess Libercia won over our protagonist. Apparently, the princess has an army of simps just because of that powerful speech. The problem is that our protagonist never actually wanted to become Libercia. Well, too late now. She is at a point in the story where there are only 3 months left before the original romance begins, in the year Ariel turns 19. And it was on this morning that she woke up occupying the princess's body. Her memories of her previous life are all blurred, but at least she remembers that she isn't the real Libercia. She remembers how she died and also all the details of the original romance. The most obvious fact was her appearance. What a stunning woman! The protagonist, who never thought she was anything special, you just needed to dress up, girl, now boasts impeccable platinum hair and mysterious purple eyes. But then the bad vibes hit. So beautiful, so young, and already going to die? No way, not even a single date before the end? Not to mention the torture part, how horrific. She thinks about avoiding the torture route, but what if she ends up dying anyway? It seems time is the greatest enemy here. Desperate, she throws herself onto the bed and starts crying, trying to find a solution, but the only thing she managed to do was spend the entire week crying. That's when, in a dream, she finds herself face to face with Libercia herself. Shocked and filled with admiration, she can hardly believe her eyes and even asks if she is really Unnai Libercia. But Libercia, short and blunt, just asks, "Why the hell would I be your Unnai?" She tells the protagonist to forget that and pay attention. Libercia came to explain the disease. There is no cure, and the only thing to do is ease the pain with medicine. The protagonist finds it strange because she isn't feeling any pain. But the explanation is clear. She only doesn't feel pain because she isn't the rightful owner of that body. The true nature of the disease comes from the soul, and that is why it is incurable. It was for this exact reason that Libercia called her there for that conversation. Libercia didn't choose the young woman for no reason. It was because she had read the book and, by a stroke of luck or bad luck, died at the exact right moment. A perfect combination of factors. Naturally, the girl is radiant to get a second chance and even chat with her idol in person. Libercia herself agrees she got lucky since, unlike the original Villainess, the protagonist won't die from that illness. Since Libercia's ailment affected the soul, now that the soul has changed, the body has a chance. The young woman breathes a sigh of relief, but wait, there's a catch. She's going to cough up a bit of blood. Nothing major, right? Libercia explains that she needs to recover the memories left in the body, and until she finds them, the damage to her soul will make her spit up blood. There are 100 memories in chronological order, so if she finds one every 3 days, everything will be fine. Why is Libercia acting like a villain right now? And she still smiles like it's the cutest thing in the world. Well, she is beautiful, isn't she? You can't deny that. Shaking like a leaf, the girl asks if it's safe to keep coughing up blood every 3 days. Libercia's response? Who knows? The plan is to hang in there for a year until the soul and body become one. In the meantime, her health will be trash. In other words, instead of dying from the illness, she runs the risk of dying from coughing up so much blood. Great, just wonderful. Realizing the girl's terror, Libercia does her the favor of programming one memory to appear on its own every 3 days, giving her time to hunt for the extras. Beautifully dangerous, this woman. Even with this grim scenario, the young woman looks at her with sparkling eyes and asks how her words can be so sexy and cold at the same time. We have an official fangirl here, folks. Even Libercia wonders how someone like this ended up in this situation. Meeting the villainess in the flesh was much better than in the book. Now the protagonist is more obsessed than ever. Then comes the dilemma: what to do with this new life? Revenge? Since the original Libercia suffered horribly, the thought is fair. But the protagonist doesn't feel all that hatred, mostly because she likes several other characters in the story. Everyone except that main couple, of course. The original Libercia, however, wants nothing to do with revenge. She makes it clear. The one who decides the future now is the young woman. It's her life. To start, she returns the memories of the original story that the girl already knew, all in chronological order. Libercia says her goodbyes and wishes her luck. The girl wakes up grateful for this dream that felt so real with her idol and accepts the challenge. Just knowing the death route is gone makes her feel refreshed. It's time to get up and get to work. She knows that if the villainess leaves the stage, everything changes. And honestly, running into that couple would be a nightmare. This Lavrov guy is a crazy bastard, and the new Libercia senses the danger from a mile away, even though she's no longer the villain of the story. So, the plan is to focus on what she really wants, meeting all the characters she already loved from afar. The original story only begins on the country's anniversary, 3 months from now. Since Libercia's mother keeps spreading horrible rumors about her, the people are already afraid of the princess, but she doesn't care. She's leaving that place in 3 months anyway, so to hell with the rumors. There's still the problem of Lavrov, the prince who thinks he owns everything that belongs to him. To avoid provoking the madman, she decides to give up her succession to the imperial throne. With this plan, she hopes to be free to travel and meet people during these 3 months, while also fixing the tragedies of the past. Ariel's story begins when she goes to the capital, but the central point is that the male protagonist is an obsessive piece of work. Because of Ariel's kindness, a lot of people were attracted to her and ended up becoming targets of Lavrov's fury and jealousy. Eugene de Volton was one of those victims and is on the new Libercia's interest list. He fell in love with Ariel and confessed to being Libercia's spy, but ended up falling into a trap set by Lavrov and died. Duke Kane de Eirik was another who tried to protect the heroine, but because of the prince's sickly jealousy, he ended up losing an arm and all his honor. And the guild master, Harris, who knew about Lavrov's trap but loved Ariel so much that he protected her until his last breath. I have a feeling these 3 are going to fall for Libercia now, huh? Not even the women escaped. Ivienna, Ariel's best friend, had to give up her dreams and her love. Jane, the maid saved by the heroine, also had a tragic fate and died for her. Even the final villain, Daniel, was a victim. He lost his best friend, Harris, because of this whole mess. No wonder the guy became a villain. It seems the whole world was sacrificed just so Ariel could shine. But now that the new Libercia is in charge, she's not going to let this slide. Before the main plot even begins, she's going to pull some strings to ensure that everyone, including herself, has a much better life. She reincarnated into this world without a single regret from her past life, and now that she's here, she isn't going to let anyone defeat her without a fight. She knows she has the power to change the entire course of this story. Lavrov and Ariel can love each other all they want, but did they really have to kill Libersha in the process? Not to mention all the others. Talk about overkill. While drawing a mental map to architect her plan, she decides it would be a total waste of time to try and get between the main couple. Daniel, the one who's friends with the side characters and the leader of an assassin organization, lost his importance in the plot way too fast, didn't he? The curious thing is that the only detail ever revealed about him is his hair color. He was the sole survivor of a country destroyed by the Empire. Maybe he'll be hard to save. Oh, come on, new Libersha, focus on him. I think he'd be a perfect match for you. With that in mind, she decides to put the Daniel case on hold for now. Since she is already connected to the other characters at this point in the story, she knows she'll eventually run into them sooner or later, and she intends to make the most of those encounters. I see you, you little rascal. During this transition period, the maids Linny and Aaron, along with the head maid Emma, haven't taken their eyes off her. After all, the poor thing almost lost her mind when she was ripped from her previous life and tossed in there. Emma was quick to assign the two of them to care exclusively for the princess. They were truly worried, and the new Libersha feels genuine gratitude for that. As soon as the maids leave, a heavy dizziness hits her. It's the effects of the old illness trying to adjust to the new soul. In the past, the original Libersha was so weak she could barely hold a teacup or stand for long without shaking all over. Even so, the original Villainess never gave up on what she wanted. Talk about willpower, right? The problem is that these symptoms have now been passed down to our protagonist. This nasty anemia could end up ruining her plans, so her only choice is to find a doctor ASAP. Luckily, there's a specialist at the palace. When she pops up at the infirmary, the doctor almost falls over in surprise, asking if she's feeling unwell. Based on his face, the old Libersha never set foot in there, probably to keep anyone from finding out she was sick. But for the new Libersha, the secret is out. She gets straight to the point. She wants a full, precise exam, like an MRI. In this world, technology is magic-based and requires a doctor who is an expert in mana. He agrees to do it, but asks her to list all her symptoms. Her answer is short and blunt: constant fatigue and the tiny detail of coughing up blood. The doctor is in shock, and she shows her stained hand. She had just recovered a memory, and of course, the blood came with it. Even without truly trusting anyone, she knows she can't solve this alone and needs professional help. The doctor then begins the preparations. The exam will take half the day. He begins using magic to scan her body. The protagonist is still hoping she won't just be stuck taking painkillers and that she'll find an immediate solution to this chaos. When Libersha finally wakes up and asks for the results, the atmosphere gets weird. The doctor goes to the door, closes everything, and even wraps a chain around the latch. What is this man doing? Frightened, she watches him walk toward her. But to her surprise, the doctor calls her Your Highness, kneels, and asks, with all the respect in the world, how she is feeling at that moment. What on earth did he find out? How have you been enduring this? The doctor asks. Libersha is completely clueless, but his shock isn't even about the physical pain, it's about how long she's been carrying this disease. The real name of this little beauty is Raffles, or the Angel's Doll. The doctor starts quoting some poem by Delaware, mentioning that on the day of the Winter Queen's visit, blue roses bloomed from the mountain all the way to the palace. Poetic, right? But the situation is tense. Libersha, however, can only smile with a face that says, "Who even is Delaware?" Since she arrived in this world only a week ago, she has no clue what the doctor is talking about or what this culture means. She's more lost than a blind man in a shootout. The doctor stands up, horrified, explaining that her illness is exactly the one from the poem. Libersha, practical as ever, cuts the drama. She just wants to fix her anemic state so she can actually do something. The doctor's brain glitches since the disease has no known cure. She insists she needs any medicine that will keep her stable, even if just for a short time, because right now she can't even hold a teacup without looking like she's going to fall apart. The man remembers something that might work, but almost no one uses it. Libersha already figures that if it only has 1 or 2 uses, she'll keep this ace up her sleeve for her final reckoning with the Emperor. And the medicine is none other than Black Death snake venom. The doctor grabs the doses from the cabinet and explains the catch. One dose keeps her stable for 30 minutes, but the side effect is a heavy, long sleep afterward. Oh, and if she takes it 3 times, what was benign becomes malignant and her body is toast. A toast to danger. And what does Libersha do? She accepts it, super hyped. The doctor even hesitates. He only mentioned this method because she's the only one who seems able to stand up to the symptoms, but he makes it clear he doesn't think it's a safe path. She doesn't care. She wants the doses and that's it. The doctor falls to his knees in despair, repeating that the disease is incurable. Libersha sees his terror and thinks, "Look, I'm not going to kill you just because there's no cure, relax." Is her villainous reputation really that bad? The poor guy sobs, calling himself useless, and she has to calm him down, reminding him that he's already helped a lot. But his crying isn't out of fear of her, it's out of pity. He explains that Raphael's is, in reality, a curse. You can treat the pain, but it never goes away. And here's the macabre detail. The only thing known is that a blue rose grows on the grave of whoever dies from it. How morbid, yikes. He thought he was going to be executed for giving her the news. After all, the rumors about the princess are horrific, and she was acting strangely to him. The doctor created a whole horror movie in his head, but then realized he was dead wrong about her. He always tried to treat everyone equally, but he noticed that despite Libersha's icy face and cold words, what she said was pure comfort. Even as she agreed to take venom, he saw a change. Her voice, though nervous, sounded kind. That's when it clicked for him. She already knows her fate. How can someone be so sweet while facing the end? Seeing that determination in the princess's eyes, the doctor felt the weight of the years of sadness she carries, or that he thinks she carries. He decides he's going to go crazy if he has to, but he will discover a real cure. He's going to flip through every book on this curse. She's just gained a powerful ally. Back to Libersha's plan, the arsenal is ready. Poison pills in her pocket and supplements to replace the lost blood. She already pops 1 pill to get the ball rolling. The goal now is the Emperor. She needs to give up her right to the throne because Prince Lavrov is the type who doesn't forgive anyone who touches his things. What an obsessive piece of work, seriously. Libersha's real urge is to slap him across the face and be happy. It would be the greatest satisfaction of her life. The problem is that the only one who can stand up to Lavrov is Daniel. The Emperor overlooks everything the prince does, so Libersha knows her only chance for peace is to mind her own business. That's why, before traveling, she wants to officially register her renunciation of the throne. Otherwise, that lunatic will hunt her down out of pure greed. She already has plan B and C. If the renunciation doesn't work, she'll just borrow some gold from the palace. And if all else fails, she'll simply steal all the treasures that Ariel wasn't supposed to discover for another 10 years. An easy life guaranteed, right? We sure hope so. Wait a minute, wait a minute. You've watched this far and still haven't liked or subscribed? Come on, my dear, give me a hand. Like and subscribe to win a cookie. And so, Libersha finally goes to face the Emperor and introduces herself. He starts right off by commenting that her voice remains as cold as ever, 0 surprises there. Without beating around the bush, the man asks immediately what she wants. Straight to the point, just like she remembered. Then she drops the bombshell. She's here to renounce the throne. The Emperor actually trembles and asks her to repeat herself. And she repeats it, perfectly calm, just waiting for him to accept it once and for all and leave her in peace. Except the Emperor thinks it's a trick. Do you plan to rely only on your mother's power? He asks. It's something to think about, but the truth is the old Libersha never wanted to depend on family for anything. Her mother was a piece of work, managing to push every other family member out of politics, which left Libersha as a princess with almost no power at all. But Libersha doesn't back down. She stands her ground and throws out a logical argument. If she leaves the race, it only benefits his own son, Lavrov. Why on earth is the man refusing? Since he brought up her mother, Libersha uses her ace up her sleeve. She warns him that he doesn't need to worry about the maternal side of the family because that lineage ends with her. The man jumps up, startled, wanting to know why she's saying that. That's when she drops the truth. Her days are numbered. Totally incredulous, he asks what the plan behind this is and what the other part of the deal is. But there is no other part. The man is being way too cautious, and she knows it would be a shame to demand anything, especially from him. She suggests that if he doesn't believe in the illness, he should ask the doctor. He says he'll do exactly that, but warns her not to expect anything from him. Says the man who has never even spoken his own daughter's name, she thinks. What a grade A father, right? She explains that she just wants her freedom, but he says that's nonsense. She fires back, saying she's even going to leave the imperial palace. The emperor takes another hit. Abandon the throne and the residence? He asks. Well, obviously. The girl wants to travel the world and enjoy herself, not rot away in that boring palace. Why do this? He insists. And she tells him straight. In the time she has left, she only desires to be free. The emperor, still reluctant, says they will finish this conversation the next day. That didn't go too badly. Now she just has to wait for his call. In the meantime, Libercia has become super close with the servants Rinny and Aaron. They are sweethearts and helped a lot when she wanted to learn more about the world. It's all very cute until Libercia chokes on her own blood. This disease is intense. It doesn't give her a minute of peace. She ends up remembering when the old Libercia was only 2 years old, unbelievably cute. Time passes, and she returns to the emperor's room. Prepared for anything, she walks in. The emperor has already confirmed the whole story with the doctor. Now that he sees she wasn't lying, he actually seems a bit sad. He goes back to the subject of the renunciation and suggests she ask for more than just retiring. But she reinforces, freedom is the ultimate goal. She wants to be far away from political marriages and wants to live in the open air, feeling the sound of the breeze. The emperor finally gives his royal permission, but only for half of the request. Now, Libercia is out of the race for the throne, but she must remain part of the imperial family and live as a princess in the palace. Uh-oh, we're in trouble. Now, how is she supposed to travel the world like that? Libercia can hardly believe what she's hearing. This scenario wasn't in any of her 3 foolproof plans. The emperor continues his speech and says he's even willing to drop a political marriage, but the right to the throne? Oh, he's not having that. He wants her to wait a whole additional year. Are you kidding me? Only after 365 days could she supposedly do whatever she wants. Man, what a son of a... 3 months was bearable, but a year. Libercia thinks of the obvious. She has an incurable disease that isn't going away. The guy has already seen the medical report and knows her life expectancy is only 2 years. In the end, not a single one of her plans worked. And that trash emperor still has the audacity to look away. Libercia is fuming at this attitude. Is he seriously ignoring her? She tries to take a deep breath, calm down, and come up with another proposal, but the man won't even let her speak. Unlike the reception a few days ago, this time she was kicked out of the room in a pathetic way. Later, there is His Majesty sitting among his papers, remembering Libercia and the blood he saw in her mouth. He starts rambling about the medical certificate and how that Raffles, the curse of the soul, is so impactful. He thinks about the doctor trying to find a cure that doesn't exist and reflects that he couldn't get rid of the princess. The reason? Because after his wife died, only his son Lavrov remained in his heart. He even justifies that the princess was a girl who didn't even know how to express herself properly, and that she was the living image of her mother, Villainess, known as the most wicked woman of her time. Hold on a second. Did I hear that right? Just because the family is powerful and the mother was bad, it was impossible to love her with all his heart. The guy simply decided she wasn't important. The imperial family really isn't winning any awards for affection. When he learned about the disease, he realized that Libercia could no longer maintain that barrier from before. At first, his plan was to accept the request for freedom since he saw benefits in it. But at the last second, his selfishness spoke louder and he didn't grant it. Libercia is only 19 and knows she only has 2 left. Her daily struggle must be terrible. And holy crap, the girl is his daughter. Only now, with her dying, is he starting to actually see his own child. Wow, what a great dad. 0 out of 10. Don't be like this, people. He keeps dwelling on her request for freedom and remembering that blue roses grow on the graves of the victims of this disease, the flowers of souls. The thought of a young woman who hasn't even reached 21 talking about her own death with such naturalness kept pounding in his head all day. The emperor stands up and starts philosophizing. If she wants to leave so badly, it's because the palace was a place of pain. He deduces she was cold and arrogant because of loneliness. Then comes the excuse. He says her wish is madness because she has many enemies, and without the title, no one could protect her. Oh, now you're thinking about protection, Mr. Father? He feels as if he's trying to save the pieces of something that broke a long time ago. Yeah, no kidding. You woke up too late. He thinks that fulfilling her wishes would be best, but his fear is the guilt on his conscience. If she goes away with only memories of being abandoned, he will feel guilty. Damn it. So you're keeping her prisoner out of pure selfishness just so you can feel better. He admits that he didn't let her go because of his stupid selfishness. At least he's honest in his own shittiness. He feels an internal need to fix this now, but even he agrees he's a trash father. You can say that again. Meanwhile, the original work starts showing Ariel's childhood. She was overprotected by her father, the Duke, living in a safe and boring-as-hell village. The girl's only pleasure was a teddy bear named Elizabeth. But every now and then, a boy her age would show up to play, Lavrov. Ever since he was 10, this kid would visit her and already dropped that line of someone who isn't right in the head. Ariel, would you be mine? The poor thing, naive and innocent, said yes, thinking he was asking, would you be my friend? Little did she know. Her innocent laughter left Lavrov very satisfied. Cut to the next chapter. Ariel is now 18 and will debut in society at an international gathering. That's where a certain someone she hadn't seen in 15 years appears. In that moment, she discovers that the boy from the village was Prince Lavrov. And at that moment, she also became a walking landmine, our Libersha comments. The maids Rinny and Aaron are totally confused. What are you talking about, Your Highness? The two are very good to her, and Libersha quickly changes the subject, asking what to do when someone opens a door full of problems. The maid's answer is spot on. You have to run, even if it's hard. She even asks if the princess is talking about a bad marriage. Rinny is about to turn 15 and is already at the age to have a fiancé. Meanwhile, after that frustrating meeting with the emperor, Libersha locked herself in her room to review her new plan and try not to go completely insane. Her mental sanity is hanging by a thread with this 1-year delay. Despite all the chaos, Libersha feels like she's finally earned the respect of Aaron, one of her maids. While having tea, she lays all her cards on the table. The problem has grown much bigger than expected. If she simply runs away in 3 months, she'll be penniless and still have a death sentence on her back. Leaving for medical reasons is an option, but she'd have to give up everything. Having that crazy prince breathing down her neck would be hell on earth, wouldn't it? Lavrov is the type who breathes spilled blood. Libersha would love the pleasure of rubbing the renunciation papers in his face. Imagine how epic that scene would be. But being realistic, she knows that's not going to happen. Right now, she has 2 options. Either go to a care home, which sounds like a total bore, or follow the second option, which could be very easily misunderstood, but she's certain it's the right path. And who is this option? None other than Daniel. The man mocks the empire to its face and vanishes without a trace. He is simply more powerful than Lavrov in every possible way. In the original work, Daniel goes somewhere far away, and everyone thinks peace has finally reigned just because he's seen as a sort of demon. But the truth is, he truly cares about his own people. Libersha thinks that if she can get close to him, she'd be safe and sound in those arms. Ooh, Lady Libersha, I see exactly where you're going with this plan. There's just one detail. Daniel is the official villain of the story, a walking danger who leads an assassin's guild. And to top it off, she doesn't even know what his face looks like. The biggest danger is that Daniel hates everything associated with the empire, so Libersha runs the risk of becoming a target just for having royal blood. Aaron thinks the idea is difficult but likes the boldness. She says that if the answer is right, things will work themselves out with patience. So, it's decided. The best bet is Daniel. The goal now is to get close to the villain and become engaged. Oops, friends. Friends, of course. Libersha stands up and thanks the maids, leaving both of them in shock. They've never seen the princess be so lovely. She even pets them like they're little kittens. How cute, honestly. The next day, she notices a detail. It's going to take a full year for the old Libersha's memories to return completely. The one that came back today was her at 3 years old. She was already stunning as a toddler, a total cutie, but her personality was already powerful. A respectable mini villainess. our protagonist goes out to the balcony, admiring how beautiful her life is now. Her unknow's memories are returning, and she's already decided on her future. Time for some fun. She wants to see her favorite characters happy, since she always liked them more than the boring protagonists anyway. It's infuriating to think that in the book, these incredible characters ended up hurt, dreamless, or dead all because of their love for Ariel. Honestly, is Ariel not the real villain here? Everyone was murdered by the prince's obsession, and she did nothing but apologize. "I'm sorry, but thank you." "Oh, please, I hate this girl already. She must be just as sadistic as that crazy prince." So, Libercia decides, it's time to start planting the seeds of happiness in the hearts of those who died unfairly. She's super hyped for this rescue mission. The first target is Eugene de Bolton, the badass knight who stood out even without the McNahan family name. Now he's being reinstated to the palace guards, and because of the rumors, he detests Libercia. He thought she was cold, which is why he fell for Ariel's opposite act. So dumb. In the beginning, he kept his distance, but his affection for Ariel led him straight into the prince's trap. Eugene had a dream, and Libercia has decided she's going to help him. Honestly, Ariel is so bland compared to our Libercia. If I were one of the extras, I'd already be on one knee asking for her hand in marriage. She knows Eugene wants to finish his time at the palace and then wander the world freely. Libercia reaches her destination and knocks on the door. Since he's the one who believes the rumors the most, she wants to show him a totally different reality. Who knows, they might become allies, or boyfriend and girlfriend. When he opens the door, our girl is stunned. Her eyes sparkle at the young man's beauty as he says, "Good morning." She can hardly look away from that silver hair and those red lips. In person, the guy is a total showstopper, way better than in the book. He asks what she wants, and Libercia, wasting no time, grabs his hand. Eugene is startled, not understanding a thing, while she just says thank you. She looks him right in the eye and repeats, "Thank you for being here." Imagine the knot that just tied in the poor guy's head. Now Libercia is dead set. She is going to spend these 3 months in the palace, and she's going to spend them with him. Poor Eugene is incredulous, asking what the hell she's talking about. While she tries to keep it together so he doesn't think she's a total lunatic, Libercia asks if he has any free time today. She says she wants to go somewhere and wants him to be her personal escort. The palace is a giant white elephant, full of corners to explore. She thinks that spending time together might create some good memories, and who knows, maybe make Eugene stop looking at her like she's the boogeyman. The young man tilts his head, totally confused, and asks, "Why ask me when you could simply order me?" Libercia, sharp as a tack, fires back instantly. She could order him, yes, but she knows he already hates her. He's startled by her sincerity. "I don't want to offend you anymore," she continues. She makes it clear that it's a request, not an obligation, and asks if he can spare a bit of his time. He puts his hand to his chin to think, and our Libercia almost melts right then and there. "Careful not to slip on your own drool, Libercia-san." He asks what she would do if he refused, since there are other escorts. She confesses that if he doesn't go, she'll simply give up, go away, and pout. Yes, there are other guards, but he's the best. She just doesn't want to force him into anything. He lets out a sweet smile and comments, "You just said I hate you, yet you say if it's not me, you won't go." Those two sentences contradict each other and are quite heartbreaking. Look at that, the ice is starting to melt. Libercia is nearly blinded by the radiant light this man emanates. She's used to beautiful people, but he's on another level. Eugene finally gives in, saying that after a confession like that, he couldn't possibly deny the request. He bows all gentlemanlike and asks where the boss wants to go. Libercia celebrates internally. Victory! She leads the way, showing the path, while Eugene reflects on life. He's only in that palace because of the Duke of Eric and with the sole goal of getting stronger. His plan was for Libercia to disappear from his sight as soon as possible, but things are taking a very different turn. Remembering her thanking him in that specific way, he clenches his fist and finds the situation funny. She already knew he hated her. He doesn't understand what her game is, but he decides he's going to play along to see where this leads. When it's time to leave, the maids go on the attack. They say the palace is a labyrinth and that Rinny should go along just to be safe. Libercia denies it immediately. She wants to go only with Eugene. The maids are in shock. That ill-mannered manipulator? Rinny asks. Libisha just confirms it, perfectly calm. Our blonde says she'll be fine because she's the one who chose him, and she intends to have fun. She's got the map in hand and warns, she's not going to let Eugene be rude to her, no way. The maids can only sigh and accept their boss's madness. And off she goes, happy as a clam for the stroll. Arriving at the location, she's admired by the scenery, the plants, and the sky in perfect harmony. But then she notices that Emma was right. The place is a bit tricky. She shows the map to Eugene, and he asks if the maid was the one who drew it. At least it looks easy to follow. Eugene, curious as ever, asks why she chose this spot. He asks her to be sincere and not come at him with that, because you please me talk. Libisha, with no filter, responds that he shouldn't overthink it, as it's out of pure personal taste. What does that mean? He asks, his brain glitching. She stares at him for a moment and ends up coughing, her body demanding its due, as always. To hide it, she changes the subject and announces, "We're here." Eugene looks at her more confused than ever. What does this woman want with me? Must be the only thing going through the poor guy's head right now. The wind blows softly as the two lovebirds look at each other in silence. Observing him closely, Libisha notices that Eugene is almost like a wild cat, or rather, he resembles a wolf. Noticing her persistent stare, he questions her about what she is looking at so intently. Libisha quickly shifts her gaze and changes the subject, praising the lush green environment around them, which is notoriously beautiful and much more welcoming than she had ever imagined. Eugene asks if she really finds the place cozy. Libisha promptly responds that the space is as beautiful as a treasure island, leaving the young man confused by the analogy. To her, that scenery is truly precious if someone pays proper attention to it, resembling a secret island. She notices a nice spot nearby under the canopy of a tree, ideal for resting a bit in the shade of the leaves. Eugene mutters to himself, questioning what she actually intends to do there. Next, he guides Libisha to stand up for a moment, warning her that she will get dirty if she sits directly on the ground. Even though they had already settled in, she obeys and stands up. Eugene then pulls a handkerchief from his own pocket and carefully spreads it out over the lawn. This action triggers a jolt in Libisha's heart, and she even brings her hands to her mouth, deeply surprised by the young man's sudden gentlemanly behavior. Eugene, not understanding her reaction, asks the reason for that gesture. She, in turn, jokes that she is almost feeling sick again in the face of so much radiance. Even my screen's brightness cranked up over here, what was that all about? Libisha smiles and confesses that she was just very impressed by the thoughtfulness of the gesture, admitting that he pleases her very much. The young man rambles for a moment, wondering to himself if he had really done something so attentive. Changing direction, he expresses his desire for her to answer his questions. Libisha invites him to sit beside her to chat and offers her own handkerchief in return. However, he turns away and politely refuses, arguing that he isn't a young lady to be needing that. Libisha starts the conversation by explaining that she has been avoiding seeing the people at the palace lately. Since everyone was saying they wanted to leave, she simply consented, saying that if it was their wish, they could go. Eugene questions her about what she would do if he asked for something similar, and she responds that she would never stand in the way of his freedom. The young man inquires if she came all the way out here just to tell him that, and she confirms it, confessing that her chest would ache if she didn't. Eugene hesitates for a moment and drops the direct question, is it because she likes him? She flatly states that yes, she does, to which he, flashing a smile, responds that he hates her. Libisha says she already knows that and doesn't mind, reinforcing that she keeps liking him even despite his disdain. Eugene is temporarily left speechless, and shortly after, asks if she wants to head back. Libisha takes the opportunity to question his motive for coming to the palace in the first place. He explains that he made this decision because the empire is full of powerful people. In reality, Eugene is a member of the imperial palace, but he was currently enjoying his vacation. In the original story, he returns to the palace because of Ariel and with the goal of stopping the original Libisha. On top of that, there was an extremely strong man he desperately wanted to meet, that Duke of Eric guy, Kane. It was precisely this dynamic that the Crown Prince, Lavrov, took advantage of. He utilized the existing differences between Eugene and Kane to make them face each other in a fatal duel. The clash had no winner. One of them lost his honor and an arm, while the other lost his very life. Libersha asks what Eugene intends to do when he finally encounters someone truly powerful. The young man responds, as if it were obvious, that he would compete with him, guaranteeing that he wouldn't refuse the challenge even if one of them might die in the process. Libersha confesses that she doesn't want to go back just yet. She simply wishes to observe him a little longer before he ends up tied to some side, since he always seems deeply frustrated to her. He lets out a laugh upon realizing he is being observed so closely. Libersha declares her support for him, wishing that he finds this powerful person soon so he can finally feel satisfied. Then, she stands up, gathers the handkerchief, and mentions that she will take it with her to return it washed in a few days. The man bursts out laughing and asks if she is already done using the object. The girl gets completely confused, wondering to herself if she said something wrong or if she should have just thrown the handkerchief away, since she only sat on it. After all, a princess doing laundry isn't exactly a common sight to see. Eugene downplays the situation, saying it's nothing, while wiping a tear from the corner of his eye from laughing so hard. The two start making their way back, and Libersha reflects to herself that her heart could never be at peace after interacting with such a beautiful man. During this same period, Libersha's doctor relentlessly hunts for a cure or solution for his lady's illness. However, all the colleagues he asks for advice recommend that he merely pretend to be looking for something, claiming that no amount of effort would do any good. Faced with such apathy, the doctor can barely believe that these individuals are considered the greatest physicians in the empire. His thoughts are suddenly interrupted by a young assistant who exclaims that he has found it. The anxious doctor questions what he is talking about and orders him to spit it out and tell him what he discovered already. Meanwhile, the boy silently ponders the princess's reputation, recalling how everyone paints her as someone cold and wicked. The doctor immediately snaps, ordering his assistant to be extremely careful with his words. He questions how the young man dares to refer to Her Highness in such a manner, especially after confirming her diagnosis. The doctor recalls just how lovely Libersha was and how she even smiled at him at the end of her appointment. The boy, who goes by the name of Ripley and sports a rather scruffy appearance, looks visibly confused by that reaction. Over the course of his career, the experienced physician has delivered terminal diagnoses to many members of the nobility. However, Her Highness Libersha is only 19 years old, which makes him wonder how no one had managed to notice her health condition before. Ripley sincerely apologizes for failing to understand the gravity of the situation and adds that, while he isn't entirely sure, maybe he can help somehow. He flashes a green-covered book and starts talking about the Duke of Eric, Kane. Ripley explains that he accidentally overheard a conversation the other day. According to what he heard, the Trojan is not necessarily a fruit itself, but perhaps a flower. The young man admits that confirming the absolute truth of the information is beyond his reach, but that was the exact conclusion the Duke of Eric reached. This mysterious Trojan fruit has been seen only 3 times in the entire world, and those occasions shared a very specific pattern in common. The first common thread is that a black-haired person was always very close to achieving success. The second point is that an intensely sweet aroma usually blankets the entire area before the fruit finally appears. Even though such details sound like made-up stories, Ripley doesn't dismiss the account, given that witnesses described a scent capable of flooding an entire region. Focusing on these clues, the young man concentrated his research on the Duke of Eric's territory, identifying the location as the most suspicious of all. Among herbalists, the Trojan fruit is considered the true elixir of life. The doctor is floored by the discovery, realizing he might have finally found a possible solution for the princess. Faced with this, he ponders whether he should pay the Duke a visit. Ripley confirms he should, but drops a warning for the doctor to be extremely careful, as countless rumors circulate through the region claiming that Duke Kane is actually a descendant of demons. Even though he is aware of the rumors, the doctor thanks Ripley immensely for the investigation. With this new information, he feels he can finally, in fact, help the princess. The entire conversation between the two, however, was being closely watched by one of the local herbalists. Upon overhearing the dialogue, She ends up discovering both the princess's terminal illness and the existence of the Trojan fruit, catching herself wondering if the emperor's daughter is really about to kick the bucket for good. Duke Kane represented the perfect contrast to Eugene, a man with deeply black hair and eyes. His sharp eyes seemed to carry a long history, while his fine features, combined with extremely pale skin, gave him the appearance of a vampire. He was widely described as a direct and cold person. He was someone Libisha could easily run into due to her status, but someone who would be very difficult to interact with. To top it off, the Duke was constantly tormented by a severe trauma from his past. Later on, Libisha and Eugene meet up again around the palace grounds. The young man confesses he was tired of staying in the same place and decided to take a walk. Libisha smiles at him and continues her stroll, but is suddenly hit by a wave of severe dizziness that almost sends her crashing to the ground. Eugene gets startled by the scene, and she tries to reassure him by saying she is just feeling a little weak, to which he reacts with clear worry. At that exact moment, she feels hit by a total arrow of passion, thinking she is going to end up fainting if things keep going like this. Eugene questions her once more if she is truly all right, and she confirms she is. Despite her positive answer, the young man makes no effort to hide his apprehension. Gently, he slides his hand onto her shoulder, making Libisha's heart almost leap out of her chest. She wonders how it's even possible to stay calm with a man like that right by her side. Eugene pulls her closer, offering support to help her walk. Sensing the urgent need to divert his focus and change the subject, she pulls out his handkerchief, which had already been properly washed and ironed. Eugene is shocked by the gesture and even turns his face away out of pure embarrassment. Trying to compose himself, he asks if she knows anything regarding the Duke of Eric, mentioning that local rumors usually call him the Knight of Shadows. Libisha's expression upon hearing that is priceless, as she already knows exactly what is going through the young man's mind. However, she explains that it is difficult to go out alone, given that the royal family only has access to a few specific places. Eugene questions her about the meaning behind that statement, while part of his face flushes visibly red. Libisha finds it truly hilarious how he pretends not to get the hint. She then openly responds that she wishes to go out accompanied by someone, pointing to Eugene as an excellent candidate for the job. When asked what he thought of the idea, he accepts the invitation immediately. It is glaringly obvious that the new Libisha's plans worked perfectly, as he appears to be completely head over heels for her now. The two begin walking together and decide to visit Kane's quarters. The Duke's pavilion was located right on the other side of the Imperial Palace Library, a restricted area where only individuals holding royal authority have permission to enter. The very existence of that space was something totally unknown even to Eugene. Taking advantage of the moment's proximity, Libisha asks for permission to ask him a question. In that same instant, the girl blushes intensely as she is flooded by various intrusive thoughts, like a strong urge to touch Eugene's muscles or simply hold his hands, while also feeling incredibly embarrassed, thinking she might be annoying him. That's when she gets an idea and asks if he could stay by her side until the long-sleeve season finally arrives. Eugene gets confused, trying to figure out if he understood the request correctly. Libisha calculates that by the time it's time for her to leave the palace, the season will already be at the beginning of winter, a time when all dresses happen to be long-sleeved. Still uncertain, he merely repeats the word, questioning her about the sleeves. She wonders if she ended up being too hasty with her words and tries to mask the act immediately, justifying that she just got a bit carried away because of how insanely handsome he is. She trembles while trying to regain her composure and adds that after the visit to the Duke, Eugene will leave, reinforcing that he shouldn't feel pressured in any way. Since she knows she only has 1 year left to live, she recognizes she acted on impulse. Shuri understands she needs to focus firmly on her main objective, even though she knows she won't give up on winning the young man over. It was a request without thinking, Libisha continued, trying to justify her previous words. Eugene remains completely silent, showing that he is deep in thought over what he just heard, while the young woman is overcome by a profound sense of embarrassment at her own audacity. Breaking the silence, Eugene bows formally before her. "As you wish, my highness." The young man seems to have completely surrendered to the princess's charms. Libisha thanks him immediately radiant and marveled by his beauty. Although she hadn't expected such a quick positive response, she definitely chalks the moment up as a major victory. Showing her joy, she skips away and grabs the doorknob to Kane's quarters, remembering just in time that the Duke absolutely detests the sound of knocking. However, as she quietly cracks the door open, she stumbles upon an unexpected scene. Her very own doctor is inside, kneeling on the floor, fervently begging Kane for the Trojan fruit. Faced with the desperate plea, Kane merely lets out a cold laugh. Libisha watches the scene intrigued, wondering what on earth the doctor is doing in a place like that. The physician, for his part, apologizes to the Duke for the audacity of his request, but adds firmly that he is acting strictly for the well-being of Her Highness. Behind her, Eugene shows curiosity about what is going on and leans in to peer inside the room as well. The doctor continues his explanation and openly reveals the gravity of the situation, mentioning the disease afflicting the princess, the curse of Raffles. Upon hearing the name of the illness, Eugene turns abruptly, completely blindsided by the revelation, while Libisha loses herself in thought, moved by her doctor's genuine kindness in seeking an alternative to save her. Kane takes the floor and questions the doctor, wanting to know why he believed he would find the Trojan fruit in the Duke's possession. At that exact moment, the young woman feels a sharp jolt in her chest, falling into deep admiration for Kane. She catches herself questioning what that feeling is and why she is enjoying observing the nobleman so much. She reflects on how the Duke is an attractive man, just as much as Eugene, yet possesses a far more mysterious aura, resembling a unique and majestic rose. Libisha feels a literal shiver as she mentally describes him as someone extremely elegant and enigmatic, concluding that he is a clear example of reality outdoing any fiction. With that, the doctor stands up, accidentally blocking the princess's view. He pushes forward with his search and asks directly if Kane possesses at least a single specimen of the fruit. The Duke, however, states he has nothing of what the doctor desires and dryly orders him to leave the premises. Libisha gets startled and backs away from the door immediately, realizing that Kane seems to have noticed a strange presence in the air. At the same time, Eugene grinds his teeth as he glares at the Duke of Eric, who also happens to be his ultimate rival. Meanwhile, Libisha focuses her entire attention on the beauty of both men, turning completely red at the situation. Eugene takes the initiative, steps in front of her, and shuts the door to the room once and for all. She questions him about the reason behind that action, internally fearing she might have crossed the line with her indiscretion. That's when Eugene approaches and gently touches her shoulder. Without warning, he simply sweeps her up into his arms in a decisive manner. The girl freezes, her face just inches from his, wondering why on earth he did that. Showing extreme boldness, she even lightly caresses him. Eugene, maintaining his composure, explains that he noticed she had hurt her ankle during the walkover. Libisha is surprised by the statement, as she hadn't even realized she was injured. The young man reinforces that she can lean on him if the position becomes uncomfortable, leaving her confused, though she is soaking up every single second of the moment. She lowers her head so he won't see her smile with satisfaction, and the two finally leave the vicinity of the Duke's quarters, with Libisha enjoying the situation to the absolute fullest. Eugene breaks the silence to warn her that he won't ask if she's all right, and that he'll also pretend he didn't hear a single thing from that conversation inside. The sunlight outside suddenly turns intense. Libisha partially covers her face to shield herself from the brightness while admiring the smile of the young man carrying her. Faced with so much gentlemanly behavior, she begins to ponder the possibility of extending her stay at the palace for another week, or who knows, maybe abandoning the idea of leaving altogether. She confesses she is truly surprised by his attitude, but notices that Eugene's expression changes, turning somewhat disheartened. Worried, she wonders if she might be too heavy. Libisha comments that since they are close to their destination, she could just walk the rest of the way on her own. However, Eugene insists on carrying her for a few more meters. He asks if she has any other requests to make, and she, trembling and hesitant, answers only that she doesn't. Deep down, Libisha's true desire was to ask him to never leave, but she knows she could never vocalize that. Eugene was always described in the stories as a suspicious man who was reluctant when it came to women, likely expecting her to take advantage of her royal authority over him. Thinking about this, an excellent idea pops into the princess's mind. As the two finally reach their destination, Eugene, showing a slight hesitation in his posture, asks her to answer one final question. "Could you take my hand?" Eugene then sets her down slowly and gently onto the grassy ground and extends his hand toward her, offering support. Libercia, however, goes completely static, standing there stiff as a board in the face of the gesture. Eugene is perplexed by her hesitation and asks if she really isn't going to take his hand. It's at this exact moment that Libercia begins to understand the real reason behind all the suspicion the young man had been showing earlier. She makes sure to clear up the situation right away, explaining that she has no hidden motives with him and that her true desire is to build a sincere friendship with Eugene. The young man is momentarily dazed by the declaration, but finds himself surprised by the honesty shown by the woman. He then grips Libercia's hand firmly and makes a solemn promise, guaranteeing that even in the future, and even if she doesn't ask, he will protect her. The knight emphasizes that, at least as long as he remains at the palace, he will make this his duty. Libercia is completely floored by the declaration and wonders if that was a formal oath. She decides she is definitely not throwing away an opportunity like that and accepts the commitment on the spot, expressing immense gratitude to the young man. He flashes a smile and responds that there is absolutely no need to thank him. After all, acting this way is his own choice. In the presence of that radiant smile, Libercia internally acknowledges that today was a truly difficult day for the stability of her heart. Throughout his entire life, Eugene had grown accustomed to being favored and flattered by the people around him, even if unconsciously. Hearing confessions about other people's romantic feelings was a regular part of his routine, yet quite annoying, since he had never done anything to make those affections blossom in the first place. However, Libercia's expressions were entirely different. He couldn't explain why, but he could feel a genuine truth in her words. He brings to mind their very first meeting, recalling how Libercia had made her complete lack of interest in him crystal clear. The young man tries to find answers to understand why she changed so much during the time she spent by his side. Libercia seemed much more relaxed, perhaps due to the sharp contrast with the arrogant attitude she used to adopt before. Eugene remembers when he questioned her if, from then on, she would send for him every time she wanted to go out, earning a simple and casual yes as a response. That reaction caught him off guard. He realized that her determination seemed sincere and pure, a feeling that could never be born from a wicked heart like the rumors floating around the palace insisted on suggesting. Even so, as a precaution, he chose to keep his guard up. Most people desired him in a carnal way, not giving a single damn about who the real Eugene was beyond his body or his attractive looks. Initially, he thought Libercia would act the exact same way. However, every answer given by the princess frustrated his expectations and biases. When she finally verbalized that she was interested in his companionship and his true self, he understood that she wasn't being driven by mere infatuation or shallow desire. Because of this, all of his worries vanished, leaving him wondering if the rumors had always been false or if the princess had suddenly changed. Of one thing, however, he is absolutely certain: her feelings are strangely pure. Now, he feels that, for the first time in his life, staying on high alert was an unnecessary measure. Although he knew he had never been capable of being just friends with a woman, the idea of building this bond now didn't seem so bad to him. Night falls, and Kane remains in his quarters reflecting deeply on everything the doctor had said earlier. He keeps staring at the half-open door while tapping his fingers thoughtfully on the desk. In his musings, he remembers Raphael's, the terrible curse of the soul, and notes that the doctor must be truly desperate for a cure. However, it seems that during the doctor's visit, the exact thing he was trying hardest to avoid happened anyway. Kane remembers seeing Libercia peeking into the room and concludes that she now knows about her own terminal condition, something she was never supposed to find out. He thinks about her behavior and notices that the way she was spying looked nothing like the Ice Princess portrayed in the rumors. It was even possible to notice a smile on her face while she was spying. Kane also recalls how the young woman's expression changed drastically, turning sad upon hearing the doctor's grave words. Unable to concentrate, he stands up and slams his hand against the desk, starting to flip through some papers right after. He reflects that even if Libersha already knew of her tragic fate, it would be very difficult to fake normalcy when death is so close. He ponders for a second if the situation could be reversed, but quickly discards the thought. At that exact moment, Eugene suddenly appears on the scene, questioning if the Duke has no intention of returning. Kane interrupts him and asks who he is. The newcomer formally introduces himself, given that this is their first official meeting. Eugene steps closer and comments that the rumors are real, as it is indeed a difficult task to hold a conversation with Kane. The white-haired young man questions the Duke regarding the doctor, demanding as much information about him as possible. Kane, however, fires back saying that Eugene can look for him himself, since the doctor is part of the palace staff and Eugene resides there too. Kane muses aloud about the strangeness of the situation, pointing out that first came the doctor and now this man shows up, questioning the reason for so much interest. Eugene firmly responds that this search is his duty. After all, he is her knight. Kane thinks he is probably speaking the truth and says that won't be enough while searching for papers on the desk. He grabs a briefcase while thinking that the best way to keep a secret like this would be to accept death itself. But now, it is already spreading through the palace. Eugene grows tense, but Kane calms him down. The doctor had stated that only the necessary people know. However, he does not believe Libersha intends to keep hiding it. Eugene then bows to Kane and takes his leave. Kane sees that Eugene is someone very easy to read in every possible way. Furthermore, the rumors he heard about the knight do not seem to have any foundation. After all, it is completely futile to detest someone based on an image created by gossip. He sees no reason not to help, but worries about the rumors spreading since the princess is ultimately on the verge of death. It all started when a maid mentioned that the princess wanted to stop living, and it got distorted like a game of telephone. Man, they should kick that maid out. And so, like all gossip, practically everything that was said was a lie. They even claimed it is contagious. In the blink of an eye, the rumors spread like wildfire inside the palace. Silently, they consumed the entire place. Meanwhile, Libersha is daydreaming about how good her day was. The poor thing doesn't even know about the wildfire of gossip surrounding her. When she wakes up the next day, her body feels incredibly heavy. Just then, Aaron rushes in, asking if Libersha is feeling well. She says she woke up looking pale and wouldn't stir when they called her name. On top of that, she had fainted several times before. While Libersha is plunged into doubt, Aaron runs off to call the doctor. The doctor enters the princess's bedroom whimpering. Libersha tells him there is no reason for him to demand so much of himself like that. She then asks what happened, believing she was just exhausted and ended up sleeping all day. However, both the doctor and Aaron look very downcast at her words. The doctor then explains that due to a severe shock, her body will not function properly. Shock, Libersha wonders. She thinks to herself that it might be because she saw too many handsome men on the same day. The physician tells her not to exert herself mentally, but there is only one truth. And the truth is that she went into shock after seeing two handsome men. The maid and the doctor stand completely frozen. Aaron even turns bright red, while the doctor tells her there is no need to lie in such a manner. But right then, Eugene appears, stating that it is the truth. He even offers a wink with a smile. While Libersha wonders about the reason for the wink, the doctor remains skeptical. Aaron, on the other hand, looks furious. Regardless, Eugene confirms it, stating that he and the princess were together the previous day. This time, even Libersha freezes. Aaron rushes over and covers Libersha's eyes while the doctor is left speechless. The blonde-haired girl turns completely red, wondering, does he really believe he is helping me? She begins to tremble with embarrassment, making Aaron worry. She sees how genuinely concerned the three of them are, so she must calm them down. Libersha then asks to be left to rest for a bit, for at least a day. She also mentions that Eugene's attractiveness is far too extravagant and that if she suffers another shock, she doesn't know what will happen. The others then leave the room, telling her to rest well. However, Aaron keeps a sharp eye on Eugene. Haha, I like her. The young man bows to the princess, states that he will take his leave, and closes the door. Libersha is left sitting there blank-faced. Suddenly, she ducks under her blanket. She starts kicking her legs, laughing so hard out of pure nerves and embarrassment that she even begins to cry. As Eugene, Aaron, and the doctor distance themselves from the young woman's room, they hear her energetic laughter inside. Aaron asks Eugene if he is going to leave, to which he replies not yet. She then asks if it is true that he was with the princess the entire day. The two lock eyes in a tense standoff while the doctor fears what might happen right there. Eugene, however, simply smiles. A few days later, Libersha is tucked away in her bed, thinking about how she spent 2 whole days convincing the doctor to take better care of himself, and that searching for a cure wasn't necessary. Perhaps now she can finally be carefree, spending her time eating and sleeping like a cat. Suddenly, she thinks she is hallucinating, believing she heard Eugene's voice nearby. That is when he speaks again, causing her to bolt upright in a massive fright. Why did he come at the end of the afternoon? She wonders. Eugene continues to stare at her while she gives him a blank look. It is then that she notices his gaze has darkened. He remarks that the princess's condition seems to have worsened and turns to call the doctor. She begs him to wait and shows him the medicine bottle prescribed by the doctor, assuring him there is no need to worry. Eugene, however, does not think he can trust that. Feeling awkward, Libersha thanks him, saying she appreciates him being just as beautiful on the inside as he is on the outside. At this, Eugene is left with a completely blank expression. Libersha then inquires about what brought him there, and he asks if his visit bothers her. Libersha explains that she does not want to seem like a burden to him. "A burden? Do you say that because I will be leaving soon?" he asks in return. Hesitant, she confirms it. Libersha wants Eugene to wrap up his business with Cain and leave the palace before the official story begins. The young man understands and apologizes for bothering her, but Libersha assures him she is grateful for his visit. In the kitchen, food bubbles away as a delicious aroma spreads throughout the hall. Rinny arrives excitedly, asking Chief Cook Theo about Her Highness's meal. The cook asks what happened to Aaron, since she was always the one who came by. The girl feels frustrated, assuming he thinks she is clumsy. However, that is not the reason. Rumors are circulating that anyone who displeases the princess vanishes. It has reached a point where even the imperial knights are terrified of Libersha. Rinny, however, recalls already making a few small mistakes around the princess. She remembers stepping on her dress one day, an accident that repeated itself a few days later. Theo is absolutely stunned. He begins to speak, but Rinny cuts in, saying she already knows she needs to be more careful because the princess herself told her so. Theo looks horrified. In Rinny's eyes, though, the rumors are completely blown out of proportion. Ever since her birth, Libersha had always shown herself to be cold and cruel, yet Rinny has never witnessed what the rumors claim. Despite everything, she was assigned as the princess's maid, and even when she messed up the simplest tasks, Libersha always showed patience and never got angry. Following this, the gossip began, and Rinny wonders if Libersha herself even knows about it. She has already shared her thoughts with Aaron, and now knows she should only believe what she sees with her own eyes. Aaron tells Rinny to always give her best for the princess, though that was already her plan. Theo asks what she is talking about, but it is now time to deliver the food. She states that Princess Libersha truly pleases her and is indeed a good person, whispering to him that he does not need to worry. Theo, however, mentions that he cannot hear her, making Rinny turn bright red. Waving her arms wildly, she changes the subject, telling him to hurry up with the food. Rinny notices that today's food portion looks smaller, but Theo cannot say why since he merely follows the instructions. Rinny concludes that Libersha must eat very little because she is such a good person, an angel incarnate. Later, Libersha comments on how hard Rinny has worked. Overjoyed, Rinny says she is entirely at her service. As the maid takes charge of clearing the dishes, Eugene suddenly appears and praises the girl. Eugene continued to visit the palace over the following days, always arriving right when it was time for Libersha to take her medicine. Aw man, they are so cute. Despite still keeping his distance, he has become much friendlier. A prime example of this is when Libersha expresses her affection for him. Her jokes about her own beauty aren't very good at all, haha, but he is incredibly handsome, so it doesn't really matter, right? Thanks to him, she didn't get bored during her treatment. He remarks on how the atmosphere in the palace has been improving, perhaps due to the reduction in staff. One only has to look around to see that people no longer feel uncomfortable. Libersha is delighted to hear about this improvement. Perhaps this is her opportunity to rid herself of the unfounded image created by the rumors. If she plays her cards right, this could be a fresh start. Eugene takes the teacup from her hand, and as she looks at him, she turns bright red, concluding that she might end up dying of something else entirely. Eugene then remarks that this change in scenery must be due to a change in the princess herself. Eugene then suggests a renewal of their arrangement. Libersha is stunned, wondering why he wants to stay there and suffer. He replies, "Because my heart was touched." At this, she nearly faints, completely melting. Realizing she let herself get carried away again, she tries to relax and cool her head. She sighs and tries to ask a question, but she ends up stuttering like crazy. Eugene looks downcast, assuming from her reaction that a renewal isn't possible. Instantly, Libersha sees no reason to give a negative answer and expresses how deeply grateful she is for his desire to stay. Well, there was no way she could win against that face of his, right? Libersha then asks if he won't get tired of being bound to her by the oath. He tells her not to place so much importance on it, as it will only be for a single year. Oh, things just got complicated. She had planned to leave the palace in 3 months. Regardless, by order of the emperor, she will have to stay. Will the story change if he remains by her side? She then considers the idea of taking both Emma, the head maid, and her escort, Eugene, with her. Thus, she extends her hand and accepts his new offer of renewal with a bright smile, saying, "Of course, when I heard that you wanted to protect me, I couldn't help but blush." Oh my goodness, how adorable. At that moment, Eugene is stunned to hear Libersha start coughing right after she finishes speaking. He watches as crimson flows down her mouth. Blood. She quickly turns away and tells him it would be best for him to retire for the day. Perplexed and alarmed, Eugene decides to call the doctor, but Libersha refuses. Eugene insists, pointing out that she just coughed up blood. However, Libersha is resolute and commands him to leave. Frustrated, Eugene clenches his fist. Libersha reassures him that this happens regularly and is nothing serious. She asks him to pretend he didn't see anything, insisting everything is fine. Eugene falls silent for a moment. He then asks if she needs anything. She replies that she needs nothing, only for him to take his leave for today. He responds with a cold, simple, yes. Night falls and Libersha curls up under her blankets as a new memory arrives. It is yet another memory from Libersha's childhood. She regrets that she still hasn't been able to hear her voice in these memories, but wishes she could take a photograph of every single one of them. But she saw her run through a wide, grassy field. She didn't make a single childish sound, but she ran like never before. Just like an angel, she thinks. Turning her thoughts back to her plan, she realizes that when she leaves the palace, she will definitely need to bring someone along besides Eugene, though Cain is completely out of the question. She finds him caring, but he is still a duke. Compared to the other characters, the chances of Prince Lavrov killing him are much lower. However, if he ends up falling for Ariel like in the original plot, things could end badly, so she ought to help him avoid that outcome. She just needs to ensure he avoids hearing those words from her. Ariel's words were hardly impressive, but the exact moment he heard them, he fell in love with her. If Libersha prevents that moment from happening, even if he still grows to like her for other traits, his love would be a little less painful this time, and he wouldn't end up losing an arm either. In her room, the princess reflects on the destiny of the characters. She ponders that if she can manage to prevent certain events, Kain's love for the original female protagonist, Ariel, will be a bit less painful, and the crown prince won't be quite so severe with him. She evaluates whether she should bring Harris over to her side. Harris, the leader of an information guild and the third male lead, was a peculiar character who pursued Ariel solely to see her cry. Although he seemed invincible, he ultimately sacrificed his own life for her. The princess concludes that if she can decrease his interactions with Ariel, he will survive. Since Harris is friends with Daniel, Libersha plans to warn him if things get dangerous, imagining herself saying that Harris will die if he keeps meeting with Ariel. Next, she analyzes the situations of Ivian and Jane. Ivian gave up her feelings for the crown prince and her dream of leading a merchant guild for the sake of her friendship with Ariel. Meanwhile, Jane ended up dying from poison in the female protagonist's place. Deeply moved by their tragedies, the princess decides that after saving Jane, she will invite her to leave with her. She throws herself onto the bed excitedly. Since her isolation period ends the very next day, she decides that her first mission will be to help Eugene and Kine become friends. In the palace courtyard, the servants chat and laugh happily, making it evident that the atmosphere in the place has drastically changed. The newly arrived Eugene approaches the palace housekeeper. He apologizes for interrupting her duties and asks if anything noteworthy has happened recently in the residence, explaining that he is asking because he will be taking over his guarding duties that day. The housekeeper replies that nothing has happened. She adds that even if something had occurred, she wouldn't repeat it to others. Smiling, she suggests that since he is now the one in charge of the princess's security, he should observe and draw his own conclusions, expressing her wish that Her Highness is in good hands. Sir Volton walks through the corridors and notices that the housekeeper is extremely loyal and discreet when it comes to her mistress. He approves of her stance, thinking that is exactly how things ought to be. However, he recalls with concern the moment the princess suddenly coughed up blood. When he used his mana to evaluate her condition, he was shocked by the severity of her health. He is impressed by the fact that she acts with such indifference despite the pain being unbearable, suspecting there might be another issue besides the Raffles disease. He feels relieved that she accepted his return and decides to hurry to start working with rocks. Determined to do everything he can to protect the princess, Eugene bursts through the door calling for Rox, but is surprised by a group gathered in the room. Rox greets him with relief, saying he arrived at the perfect time. Sir Volton notices that Kine and Ripley are also in the room and questions what everyone is doing there without an invitation. Rox explains they were just about to call him. Sir Volton asks Kine if he is on vacation from his company, mentally commenting that he didn't even know a work-focused man like him took time off. Sir Volton is suspicious of Kine's intentions, questioning why he would care so much about helping the princess when he barely knows her. He theorizes whether Kine is more meddlesome than he appears, or if he harbors some resentment against the current crown prince. Focusing on the objective, Sir Volton announces that he gathered the group to find a cure for the princess's illness and presents the two options they have so far. The first of these is a suggestion from Kine to mitigate the sickness. Kine explains that he can freely move and use the mana from his own body. Rox and Ripley are impressed, comparing the ability to the holy power used by priests. Eugene analyzes the situation and notes that his own mana possesses a light property, while Kine's is clearly based on dark attributes. He deduces that Kine is proposing a combination of their magic. Kine confirms this, confident that this rare union will create a special synergy capable of finding a solution much faster than they imagined. Meanwhile, in her quarters, the princess laments the fact that she hasn't seen her handsome men for 2 whole days. She complains dramatically that Eugene returned to his duties and questions if nobody needs her anymore. Now that made me laugh. Suddenly, a shout echoes down the corridor. The maids are startled to hear Theo's voice, severely reprimanding the maid Linny for baking cookies late at night, warning her about the risks of a fire in the kitchen. The princess remembers that she had asked Linny to teach her the recipe the night before. Realizing the confusion is her fault, she leaves the room accompanied by another maid, who warns her that the path is clear, but tells her to be careful with the dangerous objects in the kitchen. Theo orders that, from that moment on, someone else take charge of the duties, but the princess interrupts him. She takes the responsibility, confessing that she forced Linny to teach her how to cook last night. She apologizes and begs Theo not to scold the employee, promising to be more careful. Theo is left speechless before the princess. Feeling guilty about the whole situation, the princess decides to take action. Instead of staying locked away waiting, she resolves that she will go out to look for the boys on her own, taking Linny with her. The princess walks hurriedly through the corridors in search of the boys, but she cannot find them anywhere. Suddenly, a voice interrupts her, calling out, "Your Highness." Recognizing Eugene's voice, the princess turns around, only to go into complete shock upon finding him and Kine together. Faced with the simultaneous presence of 2 such handsome men, she begins to stagger, feeling as though she might faint from sheer emotion. Alarmed, the two quickly step forward, and Sir Volton catches her firmly by the shoulders to prevent her fall, begging her to be careful and asking if she is hurt. Still trembling from their charm, the princess assures them she is fine. Trying to regain her composure, she turns to Kine and asks what he and Sir Volton were doing together, commenting that it was quite difficult to find them. Kine replies that he is there to help her and asks her to accompany them. As she walks alongside them, the princess finds the situation very bizarre. She recalls that Kine had previously refused to help her and grows pensive upon noticing that he is blushing slightly while looking away. She remembers him as someone shy in the original story, but begins to think she was wrong about his temperament. Seeing Kine's awkward expression, the princess internally melts, finding it adorable that even he has a shy side. Next, she focuses on the fact that he used the plural them when asking her to come along. She reflects that in the original version of the book, Kine and Eugene would never form a partnership, as they were absolute opposites who clashed even without the interference of the crown prince. Seeing the two ignoring their differences to help her makes her wonder if this is just a whim of theirs. To break the silence, she mentions to Kine that she heard he requested a vacation from work. Kine confirms the time off and asks if there is an issue. The princess panics internally, remembering that he was supposed to save his first-ever vacation to spend it with Ariel, the original female protagonist, not with her. Disguising her surprise, she simply replies that she never imagined he would do something like that. Noticing her perplexed look, Kine gives a soft sigh and says he knows very well what a vacation is, asking her not to look at him that way. The princess is unsure whether he is joking or wants her to comfort him. Suddenly, Eugene cannot contain himself and lets out a loud laugh beside them. Annoyed by the laughter, Kine complains that Eugene is exaggerating. Eugene defends himself by saying Kine seemed like the type of person who would never take a day off in his life. Seeing the relaxed interaction and playful teasing between the two, the princess smiles with relief, realizing they have already become friends on their own. Joining in on the fun, she reassures Kine that she didn't mean to offend him and was only teasing. The princess asks what they have been up to all this time, and they reveal they found a way to slow down the progression of her illness. She already expected Eugene's help, but is intrigued by Kine's attitude. He tells her not to worry, guaranteeing that the medicine they prepared will not cause any side effects. Intrigued, Sir Volton takes the floor and asks Kine directly why he is offering help to someone he barely knows. Kine looks at the princess and recalls the day they met, pointing out that although she looked desolate at that moment, she did not display any fear. The princess is left confused, wondering if there was something that should have frightened her. She questions if he is referring to the day she stood paralyzed by his beauty and concludes that, while he is terrifyingly handsome, there was no reason to panic. Kine continues his line of reasoning and drops a bombshell. He says he thought the princess should consider the possibility of taking the empire's throne. The princess falls into complete internal despair. She imagines the crown prince discovering this conversation and executing her for treason on charges of coveting the throne. Terrified by the thought of being killed, she decides to reject the proposal immediately, making it clear that such a thing is totally out of the question. Taking a firm stance, she declares to Kine that her only dream is to live a free life, and though she is grateful for their support, she does not wish for the future he mentioned. She reinforces that the rumors about her are true. She has no interest in the throne, nor is she worthy of it. Kine accepts the answer with a nod of his head, but adds a however. The princess's heart races with anxiety. He explains that, from his perspective, she possesses leadership qualities that far surpass those demonstrated by the current crown prince. Amidst her shock, Kine concludes by saying that if she lacks the desire, there is nothing to be done, but expresses his wish for her to become powerful enough to keep the crown prince in check. The princess tries to reason if he acted this way in the original book, feeling that something is very wrong. She tries to argue, stating she doesn't plan to stay there for long, but Kine interrupts her, asking her to consider the idea until then. Seeing his persistence, Eugene intervenes sharply, saying that is enough. The atmosphere in the corridor turns heavy and tense. Realizing he crossed the line, Kine lowers his head, apologizes for being so direct, and asks the princess to forget his words. Relieved to end the subject, she replies that it is fine and hopes the mood has lightened up. The princess suggests they continue on their way, and both agree, following behind her. However, that conversation leaves an absolute certainty in the protagonist's mind. She concludes that Kine deeply despises the crown prince, to the point of exposing his hostility so openly and directly, something he had never done in the book's original story. Man, this is getting more and more interesting. Lacks the desire, there is nothing to be done, but expresses his wish for her to become powerful enough to keep the crown prince in check. The princess tries to reason if he acted this way in the original book, feeling that something is very wrong. She tries to argue, stating she doesn't plan to stay there for long, but Kine interrupts her, asking her to consider the idea until then. Seeing his persistence, Eugene intervenes sharply, saying that is enough. The atmosphere in the corridor turns heavy and tense. Realizing he crossed the line, Kine lowers his head, apologizes for being so direct, and asks the princess to forget his words. Relieved to end the subject, she replies that it is fine and hopes the mood has lightened up. The princess suggests they continue on their way, and both agree, following behind her. However, that conversation leaves an absolute certainty in the protagonist's mind. She concludes that Kine deeply despises the crown prince, to the point of exposing his hostility so openly and directly, something he had never done in the book's original story. Man, this is getting more and more interesting. Upon entering the medicine room, the princess, Sir Volton, and Kine find a stranger along with Rox. The man formally introduces himself as Ripley, Rox's colleague, and a professional herbalist. The princess replies that the pleasure is all hers to meet him. Ripley hands over a large quantity of medicine and mentions he will store it in a bag to make transportation easier. He then begins a lengthy, academic explanation, but in the middle of it, Libercia ends up coughing up blood again. Suddenly, another rush of memories floods her mind right then and there. She panics upon remembering that this is already the third day of the cycle. Feeling the impact, she staggers, but is caught by Eugene. She thanks him for his quick assistance. Trying to brush off what happened, the princess assures everyone she is fine and asks Ripley to continue his explanation. Ripley and Rox begin to whisper to each other, deeply impressed by her posture. Later, Libercia finally manages to access the new memory. She gets thrilled to hear the voice of the original Libercia as a child, at 6 years old. In the memory, the little girl asks Emma about a package that has just arrived. Emma explains that it is a gift delivered to celebrate the princess's birthday. Delighted by how cute little Libercia is, the protagonist reads the card attached to the gift, which wishes her a happy 6th birthday and is signed by Dante Vanis. The young woman recognizes the surname Vanis as belonging to the maternal side of the princess's family. She recalls that after Lysian Vanis's death, Libercia had lost all contact with her mother's relatives, concluding that they still maintained communication when she was little. In the memory, Libercia happily asks Emma to bring some paper so she can write a reply. The protagonist is deeply moved to see the child's face light up, but laments knowing that this joy will change drastically in the future. She knows the day will come when Libercia will cough up blood and discover her own illness. Although she acknowledges that receiving this memory will be painful, she decides she won't feel sorry for her, as she knows the true Libercia would reject any kind of pity. Instead of mourning her fate, she decides to focus on making the most of every moment to love the character and appreciate everything she received by taking over that body. Shifting the focus of her thoughts, she assesses that the relationship between Kine and Eugene has improved considerably compared to the original book. She decides the moment is perfect to try and solve Kine's personal issues. That marks the 18th day since her arrival. She plans to meet with Kine more often to help him be happy, only hoping that he gives up on the idea of making her take the throne. On a day with pleasant weather, Sir Volton walks through the gardens, thinking about inviting the princess for a stroll. Right at that moment, she appears and greets him with a good morning, suggesting a morning walk. He readily accepts the invitation. The princess suggests they visit the royal library. Sir Volton agrees and comments that they should take the opportunity to drag out a certain someone who is locked up inside. Once at the entrance of the royal library, the princess teases Sir Volton, asking if he doesn't feel grateful to have her as his master for securing the entry pass. With a smirk, he fires back saying she doesn't need to brag over a simple permission. The princess notices he is much friendlier and decides to ignore his cheeky tone, amused by his personality. They begin to walk through the corridors and rows of books looking for Kine. Since they don't see him anywhere, the princess wonders if he might have returned to his office, though she finds it unlikely since he is on leave. Suddenly, she spots him hidden away in an isolated corner. Seeing Kine totally absorbed in his reading, the princess is struck by his beauty. Sir Volton asks what's wrong, but she signals for him to be quiet. Sensing a feeling of déjà vu from the situation, she begins to back away slowly. Eugene grabs her arm and questions where she is going, reminding her that she was specifically looking for the Duke. The princess whispers back, saying he looks very busy and it's best not to disturb him. She justifies that the purpose of a vacation is to do whatever one wants, and that it would be horrible to interfere, though what she truly wants is to preserve the image of him looking like an angel while reading. Eugene just glares at her suspiciously. He notices Kine's relaxed countenance and comments that he has never acted like this before, especially in the original story. The princess feels happy to note that Kine is distancing himself from his tragic fate and gets ready to resume her walk with Sir Volton. Suddenly, a loud voice interrupts them. They turn around in surprise and find themselves face to face with Kine himself. Kine reveals that he noticed the princess and Sir Volton's presence in the library when they were backing away. Libercia explains that she wanted to invite him for a stroll because of the beautiful weather and apologizes in case they disturbed him. Kine gets flustered and blushes at her reasoning, assuring her that they didn't disturb him at all. The princess takes the opportunity to officially invite him to join her and Eugene on their walk, insisting that he make the most of his vacation. Kine politely accepts. During the walk, the princess suggests that Kine sit down to rest, but he refuses, believing it would be disrespectful to her. Even so, he remains fully vigilant, which brings a profound sense of security to the protagonist. The princess comments on how beautiful the world is, and Eugene makes a joke about her poetic tone. She recalls that in the original story, Eugene found Kine's protective behavior to be rather sinister and maintained a fierce rivalry with him. Now, however, Eugene simply seems amused by the situation. Back in her quarters, the princess praises Kine to Eugene, saying he is a very good man. Sir Volton remarks that Her Highness is the only person in the palace who thinks so and calls her strange, but the princess defends herself, saying she is just being sincere. Around the palace, serious rumors concerning the princess are running rampant, including lies that she is on the verge of death or that she has been banished by the emperor. However, due to the secrecy and loyalty of her staff, none of this gossip manages to make its way past her bedroom doors. Irene serves hot tea to the princess, deeply worried about the sheer amount of cruel gossip spreading on the outside. She desperately hopes her mistress won't find out about any of it, while wondering if she is just overthinking things. Lying in bed, the princess reflects aloud that the world is so beautiful it feels like a dream she never wants to wake up from. Upon hearing this, Irene and Linny fall into a total panic, thinking the princess might be preparing to pass away. Linny breaks into tears and begs the princess not to carry such a heavy burden all by herself. Completely failing to understand the maid's dramatic reaction, the princess simply thinks about what a wonderful day she had alongside two gorgeous men and laments not having any souvenir photos. To make up for it, she decides she will start keeping a diary to leave a record of her experiences. A desperate Linny reports to the housekeeper, Emma, that the princess spoke of leaving something behind and suddenly decided to start a diary, crying heavily as she recounts the situation. Emma panics as well, suspecting that the rumors of her passing might actually be true and that the princess wants to leave a trace of her existence before she dies. She notes that ever since Libercia grew closer to the maids, she has become deeply cherished by everyone there. Wanting to help in any way they can, the palace staff decide to mobilize and provide the finest notebook and writing materials so she can write in her diary with the absolute utmost comfort. The princess receives the 7th memory of the original Libertia, which shows the princess at 7 years old as a very studious girl. Unable to sleep, she decides to walk through the gardens at night, realizing that over a month has already passed since her arrival in this new world. She feels frustrated that she still hasn't managed to leave the main palace to find the other characters on her list, seeing as the elderly court physician made a massive scene and strictly forbade her from going outside due to her health. As she walks among the foliage, she spots Kine amidst the greenery, who offers a bow. Realizing he is incredibly shy and won't initiate a conversation on his own, the princess takes the initiative, approaching him with a warm smile and wishing him a good evening. In the original book, Kine was a workaholic who rarely went out. He met Ariel by pure chance when he went to deliver a report, and she was crying over a tiny paper cut, a scene the protagonist found ridiculous at the time. She reflects that Kine has always been a serious and innocent man, carrying a melancholic expression because he is, in reality, a half-vampire. She laments that he suffered such a grim fate in the original work and criticizes the author's cruelty toward someone so handsome. Thinking about his sensitive temperament, she worries about the possibility of the crown prince intimidating him once again. Standing before him in the garden, she tells him that above all else, she wishes for him to avoid getting hurt or dying, thinking that seeing a beauty like his harmed would break her heart. All of this, of course, while imagining him shirtless. A bit cheeky, aren't we? Confused, Kine says he didn't quite understand her comment. The princess covers up her embarrassment and lies, claiming she was just thinking out loud, wishing for him to always remain healthy and handsome to brighten her days. Kine accepts her reasoning and asks if he may tell her an old story. With her consent, he narrates the life of an unwanted child who was born and raised in isolation, without friends or any form of human warmth. He continues, saying that one day, this child managed to make a friend and tasted the joy of having someone close by. However, that so-called friend demanded his flesh, his blood, and his heart in return. The child willingly accepted because he considered him his only companion, only to discover much later that he had merely been used by him. Kine asks the princess for her opinion on how the story ended. Failing to grasp the hidden meaning behind the question, she decides to give a standard, straightforward answer. She states that the child should have run away immediately before they could steal anything else from him, arguing that a true friend would never demand such sacrifices. Impressed by her conviction, Kine addresses her as Your Highness. He gives a solemn bow and announces that the following day, he and Sir Volton will accompany her, guaranteeing that everything will go exactly according to her wishes and that no one else will get hurt. The princess doesn't quite understand the solemn vow, but assumes it is a display of loyalty due to her abilities as a sword master. Thus, she bids him good night, eagerly looking forward to the next day. The next day, Rox finally gives in and grants Libertia permission to go outside, after being firmly pressured by both Eugene and Kine. Rox hands over his final recommendations and asks her to walk slowly, without any rush. The princess thanks him and, thoroughly thrilled, sees this as the perfect opportunity to interact more closely with Kine and Eugene. The princess confirms that the two will accompany her and calls for the housekeeper, Emma, asking her to prepare 2 sets of casual clothes. Upon seeing the young men dressed in more casual attire, she completely swoons over their striking beauty. Eugene comments that they only managed to secure the permission from Rox because the Duke insisted and begged him extensively the day before. Kine looks completely flustered by the revelation. Looking over at Kine, the princess notices he is offering a very shy, restrained smile. She goes into total ecstasy over the beautiful sight, finding his expression absolutely adorable and wonderful. Enchanted by Kine's smile, Libertia gains total determination to resolve his personal issues immediately, fully convinced that he has finally opened his heart to her. Kine recalls the pain of being isolated due to his vampire blood and how much he hated himself for feeling weak when seeking affection, channeling that vulnerability into hatred for Lavrov. Initially, He intended to use Princess Libercia merely as a pawn in his plans for revenge. However, everything changed when he saw the reflection of his late mother in the princess's eyes. Libercia was entirely unpredictable. He realizes that her warm nature captivated him, while her melancholy smiles caused a tightening in his chest. He remembers the previous night, when he overheard her lamenting how time was passing too quickly without her being able to leave the palace, making him realize that beneath her apparent cheerfulness lay profound suffering. Kyne remembers that the princess wanted to visit Blanchett Square, an idea Rox and Ripley rejected, believing the market was far too bustling and dangerous for her frail health. Since Sir Volton was the only one to energetically defend her, sparking an argument, Kyne decided to intervene and approach the princess directly during the dead of night. Kyne recalls when the princess begged him not to get hurt or die. The request caught him completely off guard, since he had never been physically harmed and no one had ever cared about his well-being. Feeling deeply touched yet simultaneously frightened by such proximity, he reacted on impulse and revealed his tragic past in an attempt to push her away. He reflects on the response he received from her, that a true friend does not demand sacrifices and that the child in the story should have run away. This direct perspective caused Kyne to stop blaming himself. Comforted by the princess's words, which quieted his self-reproach, he makes a personal commitment to protect her and remain by her side for as long as she lives. The next morning, Libercia wakes up early, determined to take action to prevent Kyne's tragic fate. She reveals that she chose the early hours of dawn because it is the period when she usually vomits blood due to her illness. Since her memories never surface at daybreak, this is the safest time to move around without interruption. She walks through the courtyard, knowing the Duke usually trains there. The princess finally locates Kyne in the courtyard. Surprised to see her alone, he questions her presence, and she covers it up by saying she didn't expect to run into him. Demonstrating his care, Kyne steps closer and places his own cloak over the princess's shoulders to protect her from the cold wind, a gesture that leaves her completely enchanted. Oh, my goodness, how sweet. When questioned about the reason for being awake so early, she makes up a story about having a nightmare and being unable to fall back asleep. When she returns the question, Kyne reveals he was training. The princess celebrates the success of her plan in her thoughts, preparing to guide the dialogue based on the information she possesses from the original book. Kyne clarifies that he was training his mind, not his body. The princess questions whether the mind truly strengthens through training, and he hesitates, unsure of how to answer. Enchanted by the Duke's voice, the protagonist decides to use her knowledge of the book to strike the right chord and bring peace to his heart. She ponders that the mind cannot be measured or seen, and asks if there is something specific troubling him to require that kind of effort. Kyne confesses that there is, but downplays it, saying it isn't important enough to worry her. The princess responds sweetly that if something is weighing heavily on his thoughts, he should simply rest. The protagonist draws a parallel to the original story, remembering that Ariel told Kyne exactly that to rest, but only because she found physical training exhausting. However, the book revealed that this simple display of care was the greatest comfort Kyne ever received in a life marked by loss. Looking at the Duke, the princess states with conviction that she had always wanted to say those words to him. So cute. The princess repeats that Kyne ought to rest, asserting that she has always wanted to say those words to him. Kyne counters that she knows absolutely nothing about him. She accepts the point, but steps closer and touches the Duke's cheek, pondering that knowing someone and understanding someone are not always the same thing. Internally, the young woman melts over Kyne's melancholy expression, comparing him to a puppy in the rain and checking her urge to caress him even more. Even though she has to stand on her tiptoes due to his height, she feels she has fulfilled her fan fantasy. Saying her goodbyes to return to her quarters because of the cold, she celebrates the success of her mission. Now that she has given Kyne this affection, he will no longer react to the exact same phrase in the future, as if Ariel were his sole savior. Left alone, Kyne is intrigued. He reflects that not even the Emperor knows his anguish, yet the princess acted and smiled as if she knew exactly what he was going through. He realizes that those words penetrated deep into his heart precisely because they were spoken by her. Hidden among the branches, Eugene watches the scene and lets out an ironic chuckle. He reveals in his thoughts that he was guarding the princess's safety in secret because she seemed to want to be alone. Eugene recalls that he tried to alert her by shouting for her to wait when he saw her head toward the Duke in the dead of night, but she was so distracted that she ended up not hearing his call. Eugene walks up to Kine and confronts him. Kine asks if he was spying, and Eugene replies that it doesn't matter. He points out that the Duke was so focused on the conversation that he failed to notice how frail the princess looked, far beyond a simple nightmare. Next, Eugene asks if Kine has heard the recent palace rumors that Her Highness is on the brink of death, leaving the Duke shocked. Connecting the dots, Kine recalls the princess's melancholy questions about whether the mind grows stronger through pain. He realizes that she was able to understand him so well because she was already accustomed to her own suffering. Overcome with guilt for being a fool and not realizing the gravity of the situation sooner, he understands that her state of health is much more serious than they had imagined. Later at the palace, Linny excitedly displays various options of commoner clothing for the outing and suggests one that would suit the princess. Proud of the compliment to Libercia's beauty, the protagonist asks the maid to choose the best outfit, praising Linny's good taste. The princess focuses on the preparations to meet Ivian, counting on the support of Emma and Irene. Emma questions the reason for so many changes, and the princess replies calmly that it is useless to keep holding onto those things. She explains in her thoughts that she asked for help to sell off the princess's personal properties, including her fashion salons. She justifies the decision knowing that, although Libercia's salons are currently popular among the noblewomen of the capital, Ariel will soon discover a hidden salon in an alley that will become the empire's next big trend, bankrupting the princess's businesses. Determined to convert everything into hard cash while there is still time, Libercia plans to amass an even greater fortune to give to Ivian, convinced that there is no better way to build a strong bond of friendship than by offering financial support. I'm loving how Libercia is changing things up. I wonder how Ariel and Lavrov will end up in the end. The princess asserts to Emma and Irene that it is useless to keep holding onto her belongings. Interpreting her words as a sign that she is getting rid of everything because she is going to die, the maids are left deeply shaken. Libercia tries to calm them down. Today is a very important day, and she gets dressed in commoner clothing for the secret outing. Upon leaving the room, she encounters Kine and Eugene wearing casual clothes and is absolutely beaming with joy to be going out with the two of them. She says goodbye to Linny, expressing her regret for not being able to bring her along and promising to include her next time. On the way to the city, the princess recalls the events of the original book. She remembers that Ariel was pure, naive, and cried easily. In a single day, she managed to catch the attention of secret guilds and win over Jane and Ivian without doing a single thing. Libercia mocks the simplicity of the original plot, but is relieved that she won't have to look very far to find the person she wants. Upon arriving at Blanchett Square, Eugene asks the princess to stay close. She heads toward a commercial establishment to submit the documents and sell off her fashion salons. Once there, the notary is dozing off. She then slams the folder onto the desk and coldly demands that the payment for the sale be made in hard cash and jewels, and quickly. The man is left intimidated and tense, wondering if she is a high-ranking royal servant and if this transaction is dangerous. The princess thinks to herself that she must not act with kindness in these bureaucratic situations to ensure everything goes smoothly. The man hesitates and asks if she is the legitimate owner of those establishments. The princess slides her finger along and displays the imperial signet ring, confirming that she is. Recognizing the royal jewelry, the notary rushes to speed up the process immediately. But before he leaves, Libercia asks if he knows of a place called the Black Cave. After concluding the transaction, the princess returns outside where Kine and Eugene were waiting for her. Eugene asks worriedly if everything went well, or if anyone gave her a dirty look or mentioned any rumors. She is left thoughtful, aware that Libercia was always surrounded by gossip, and not knowing which specific rumor he is referring to. Eugene decides to change the subject and invites her to continue with their stroll. Faced with the noisy and lively bustle of the market, Kine gently asks if there is a specific place she would like to visit. Charmed by his courtesy, the princess asks that, for that day, instead of calling her Your Highness, the two of them start calling her Lisha. Kine hesitates for a moment, but gives in and addresses her by the nickname Lisha. Libercia suffers a heart attack of pure infatuation. Right after, Eugene repeats the nickname and asks where they are heading next. Completely on cloud nine, with the beauty and charm of the two young men by her side, the princess tries to control herself internally to avoid having another nosebleed from so much excitement. She announces that she wants to go to a place called the Moonlight Garden. Eugene notices how pale she looks and suggests returning another day. Kine, worried, asks if she is referring to a bar. The princess insists, saying that she is perfectly fine as long as she is with the two of them. Once settled at a noisy table inside the tavern, the princess observes the lively atmosphere and the clinking of glasses. Kine asks the reason why she wanted to visit a place like that. Since she read the book, she knows the drinks there are delicious, so she makes up an excuse that she simply wanted to try them. Examining the options, she decides to order a small glass of the most popular drink, the Moonlight Liquor, just to have a taste and avoid the risk of getting drunk, despite her internal desire to try everything on the menu. Eugene and Kine comment that although the commoners do not recognize Her Highness, it is dangerous to let her place the order alone. They notice her enthusiasm since this is her first time out in the open, but they recall that the amount of blood the princess has been coughing up has increased significantly lately. They agree to speak quietly to keep her from overhearing the rumors going around about her. Left alone for a moment, the protagonist delights in the sweet and bitter scent of the alcohol. Suddenly, Eugene fixes her hood, warning her that it is slipping, and pulls it forward playfully, which greatly amuses Libercia. Taking advantage of the moment of closeness, Eugene suggests that she start calling him simply by his first name, Eugene. Right after, Kine also mentions that, if she agrees, he would like her to call him by his first name as well. Deeply touched and crying with emotion on the inside, she accepts and thanks them. As a child, the original Libercia was never allowed to mingle with others, make friends, or have desires of her own. The sound of men talking at the bar breaks the mood. A man spreads a rumor that the evil bitch of a princess is dying and coughing up blood, and that she is allegedly trying to commit suicide after having gone mad. He claims to have heard the information directly from Annie, who is part of the royal medical staff. The man begins to celebrate boisterously, saying she would be doing everyone a favor if she just hurried up and went to her grave. Outraged by the insults against his precious Libercia, Eugene loses control, lunges at the man, and starts a bar fight, causing people to cry out for the guards. All of this happens while Kine gently strokes our dear princess's face. Wow, I absolutely loved that. Kine notices how late it is getting, and while the battered man begs for help, suggests to the protagonist that they head back. I actually laughed here, haha. She peacefully agrees, while Eugene tosses the slanderer aside. From afar, a man named Harris observes the scene and notes with great interest the presence of Princess Libercia, accompanied by Sir Volton and Duke Eirik. He smiles maliciously upon seeing that, even after hearing others wish for her death, the princess keeps smiling as if nothing had happened. Harris expresses a sadistic desire to make her cry, but he is interrupted by a certain someone who questions him for trespassing on his private space and asks if he has a death wish. Harris tries to act friendly, but the other man rejects the approach, warning that Harris looks like a pervert who enjoys seeing others cry and reminds him that he has a habit of killing people whenever he secures a romantic match. The man denies the accusation, saying he has never had a romantic match and would never waste time falling in love with a target. He coldly concludes that there is little reason to love someone who is already dying. Back on their way, Libercia reflects. Kine had covered her ears during the commotion at the tavern, but she discovered that Eugene had gotten into a one-sided fight against the men badmouthing her at the bar. Far from being frightened, she found Eugene's fury and appearance extremely attractive and hot. Geez, Libercia, is there anything else on your mind? She confesses to herself that she isn't upset by the insults she heard, because seeing Eugene get angry on her behalf and having the two of them by her side makes her immensely happy. However, Eugene's absolute silence since they left the bar begins to make her anxious, fearing she might have done something to offend him. She decides to ask if she said something wrong. Eugene looks at her and, addressing her as Princess Libercia, demands to know why she didn't simply get angry at the offenses those men uttered. Libercia replies indifferently that she had no reason to get angry, as the incident was of little importance. Eugene fires back, saying that those men's words were extremely insulting toward her. Internally, the protagonist ponders that she loves Libercia, but recognizes that she was a true villain in the original story. Even though she herself, in her current life, hasn't committed any of those misdeeds, she prefers not to invalidate the past of the body's original owner. Therefore, despite not liking to hear such insults, she cannot bring herself to get angry, as she does not want to disdain the life the original Libercia lived. Libercia already knows that the rumors will never disappear anyway. She pouts and says that if she were to pay attention to every single piece of gossip, she would end up fainting from a lack of energy, and that she doesn't want to waste the little time she has to enjoy her life as a fan. Eugene refuses to accept this, asserting that she only says that to try to convince herself, but she insists that she is genuinely happy. Faced with his denial, she begins to think that Eugene is drunk and emotional because of the alcohol, finding the situation a true rarity. Ah, how cute. Eugene shifts the focus and drops the fact that she isn't taking the painkillers Rox prescribed her. She justifies herself mentally, saying that she doesn't feel any pain at all. Anguished, Eugene demands to know why she never takes an insult as an affront and acts as if she deserves to be treated that way, asking how she can torment herself so much. Seeing his despair, Libercia concludes that Eugene's alcohol tolerance is extremely low and panics, deciding never to let him drink again. Eugene approaches tremblingly and asks how she can smile like that knowing she is going to die soon. Kine intervenes sternly and tells him to stop it. Confessing that he cannot bear to watch her go through this, Eugene breaks down in tears and gives the protagonist a tight hug, causing her to let out a gasp of surprise. Libercia turns completely red, ha ha ha. While trying to calm herself down in the embrace, she is dazzled by Eugene's cologne, feeling like she is in heaven upon noticing that she is touching his toned abs. She begins to feel dizzy with her heart racing, thinking that her heart is going to stop right then and there, and that Dr. Rox lied about the symptoms of the illness. She practices asking him to end the hug once they get home, but she cannot manage to say anything out loud. Eugene begins to regain his sobriety and, embarrassed, releases the hug. He apologizes for daring to speak to her that way and for holding her so tightly, saying he deserves the death penalty for it. Libercia grabs his collar and thanks him deeply for all the affection and concern. Right after, she gets dizzy looking at Eugene's chest and her heart rate spikes. To avoid further embarrassment after such an intense moment, she decides the best thing to do is to fake a faint. She stumbles and loses consciousness in Eugene's arms, who falls into a panic and screams for her highness. Suddenly, Kine notices something approaching Eugene and Libercia's direction. A stone cloaked in magic. He quickly draws his sword and deflects the blow with his magic, protecting his princess. Kine then spots a mysterious man in the shadows of a house just ahead. It is Harris, who looks disappointed to have missed the target. Later on, Libercia speaks with Rox. She requests that the doctor prescribe her a moderate-strength stimulant that can be taken periodically. She explains that she lost consciousness again the previous day, and that, since the fainting spells are becoming more frequent, she cannot continue like this. Rox warns that her highness must not force herself to stay awake. He explains that with her body growing weaker and weaker, fainting is merely a defense mechanism to protect her. Libercia says she has an excellent reason for needing to stay awake. She confesses to the doctor that the day before, she committed an inexcusable act and ended up becoming a burden. That is when Eugene bursts into the room. She berates herself for having drunk so much, remembering that her initial intention was only to fake a faint, but she ended up actually blacking out and forcing Eugene to carry her back. Feeling like a terrible friend, even though she enjoyed it, you naughty girl. She apologizes. Eugene kneels and demands to know why she views herself as a burden. Faced with his gaze, she begins to confess her mistakes, mentioning that she dragged him around, forced him to drink, and made him listen to insults about her. Deeply moved, Eugene begs her not to act this way and asserts that she should not forgive him so easily. Seeing Eugene cry, the protagonist melts over his beauty, but forces herself to stay focused so she won't black out again. She reaches out, wipes away Eugene's tears, and affectionately asks him to stop crying, assuring him that everything will be all right. She smiles and comforts Eugene, saying that her feelings for him will not change. While she celebrates his looks internally, we journey into Eugene's reflections. He recalls the rules of the free knights, who lose their title the day their liege dies. Eugene admits he never liked wielding swords or considered himself a knight, but upon starting to serve the princess, he wished to see her smile and wanted to remain by her side, initially out of pity. Eugene accepts the strong bond of friendship that unites them and decides to take a step forward. With the protagonist fast asleep in bed, he makes a solemn oath in silence, promising to serve Libercia Ram Trial as his lady and master, acting as her sword and shield until the end of his days and placing her above his own heart and life. From afar, Kine questions the use of making a vow to someone who is asleep. Eugene smiles and replies that if Her Highness knew, she would certainly stop him. Eugene shares his own impressions, admitting that at first, he thought the princess was cold, though not as much as the cruel rumors claimed. He recalls that everyone viewed Libercia as someone without remorse, a vessel made of ice that refused to hold any emotion. However, everything changed the day she took the initiative to approach him, revealing herself to be a warm person. He confesses that he was blinded by society's gossip and expresses gratitude for the princess's existence. Her Highness never gets deeply involved with anyone. He recalls that her first approach was entirely devoid of romantic intentions, comparing it to a field of flowers in spring, which made him even more enchanted by someone with no ulterior motives. However, Eugene assumes he noticed later on the clear line she drew between them, understanding the boundaries he should not cross. Understanding that the princess never had anyone to truly defend her, Eugene states that his desire was to be that person by her side. He asks Kine not to tell her about the oath for now, as he knows her personality and knows she would start to worry. Amused, Kine agrees to keep the secret, thanking him afterward. Elsewhere, Daniel warns Harris not to sully the princess, alerting him that although the Vanuses seem indifferent, they are paying close attention to her. Irritated, Harris says he doesn't care about that and tells Daniel to shut up. Daniel insists he is merely worried that his ally will end up getting hurt. Harris fires back at the provocation with mockery and smiles maliciously as he thinks about the oath of the knight Eugene, finding that the situation is becoming more and more interesting. Well, we've reached the end of the chapters. For now. And there, do you want the continuation? So leave a like and a comment with a cookie. Until next time, my dears. The 8th birthday of Libercia. In the memory, the little princess appeared sitting in silence, counting her few presents. A quill pen she had received on her 6th birthday and a thick book received on her 7th. There was also a closed box from her 8th year that she hesitated to open. When asked by her servant if something was wrong, the girl turned thoughtfully. Little Libercia justified that she felt better without opening the package, showing a fear that the feeling of anticipation would disappear after seeing the contents. The protagonist becomes emotional and cries at the melancholy of the princess's childhood, trying to hug the little Libercia. Until she wakes up. She wipes the blood from her mouth and feels happy, even wishing she could see more of little Libercia. She recalls that the doctor, Rox, refused to give her stimulants, administering sedatives that knocked her out immediately. Aware that she cleaned up all the bloodstains and that she needs to avoid running into Eugene for a while to spare him from worry, she decides it is time to go to Blanche Square. Her plans include stopping by a tavern and collecting the money from the sale of the salons, which, according to Emma, were an absolute sales success. Libercia plans to meet with Ivian as soon as she gets the funds. She recalls that, in the original story, Ivian was a peculiar character who remained friends with the heroine despite being in love with the crown prince, in addition to harboring a deep hatred for Libercia. Despite this, she reassures herself, thinking that the current course of events is different from the original book. In the square, Linny excitedly calls the protagonist, using the codename Leisha, to look at the attractions. Linny is a young girl from a noble family who lost her relatives in an accident during her childhood and became a servant at the palace very early on. which explains her enthusiasm and lack of knowledge about the outside world. The two approach a curious crowd, where a merchant is performing a demonstration with a magical powder. The man condenses the magical powder in the air with theatrical movements. Observing closely, Libisha realizes that the trick is nothing more than making cotton candy. Finding the whole spectacle comical for a simple sweet, but unable to resist the appetizing look of the treat, she invites Linny to eat together. Libisha now appears exhausted from getting too carried away during the stroll. Eugene observes her with a guilty and downcast countenance, taking responsibility for her fatigue and promising to ask Rox to prepare a strengthening tonic. This is while he is carrying her, of course. The princess reflects that Eugene's overprotective behavior has gone overboard in recent days. In addition to the excess of medicine, she has been served extremely high-calorie meals to recover her strength. Unable to eat everything by herself, she asked for Linny's help, who now complains tearfully about having gained weight, even though Libisha tells her she looks quite cute. That is when the protagonist recovers Libisha's ninth memory. At 9 years old, the princess appeared much more mature, though her cold expression already gave the first glimpses of the future villain. Even so, the memory showed a pure girl who loved to study and make origami animals. The limitation of her hobbies due to isolation leaves the protagonist sad for not having been there to support her. Emma enters the room and delivers a special diary requested earlier. She explains that the object features a touch recognition system that identifies only the rightful owner, guaranteeing absolute secrecy for its functions. Emma adds that the diary is lightweight yet rigid enough to deliver a physical blow against attackers, should it need to be used for self-defense. The protagonist smiles as she imagines its practical utility against Crown Prince Lavrov. Haha. Emma adopts a serious posture and declares that, in her personal opinion, Her Highness is a genuinely good person and that nothing will change that. Touched by the words, the princess blushes with embarrassment and replies that Emma is also fantastic, considering her as part of her family. Emma thanks her for the kindness and reaffirms her commitment to always be by her side for whatever she needs. The protagonist tests the special diary she received from Emma. Upon pressing the designated spot for owner recognition, she experiences a sudden sensation, as if someone had poured cold water over her head. The diary boasts numerous protective features, including tracking spells, waterproofing, and 3 defensive barriers. Furthermore, if anyone else attempts to open it, the object displays fake pages. Once the entire notebook is filled, the owner can summon the spirit of the diary, a creature resembling an elemental fairy, which possesses the ability to preserve the user's memories in case of an emergency. Excited, she names the notebook My Happy Fan Diary and decides to write in it secretly during the night. Man, I need a diary like that. While writing, Libisha ends up falling asleep. Taking advantage of this, Harris slips into her room, watching over her as she sleeps. The princess enters a new dream about Libisha's past. This time, she witnesses the princess's 10th birthday, where she receives a puppy as a gift sent by her maternal family, the only connections she possessed with the outside world. The protagonist melts at the cuteness of the scene, remembering that the original Libisha studied extensively just to understand the use and meaning of the gifts she received. However, someone abruptly appears, harshly questioning who gave permission for that dog to be there. The protagonist does not recognize that person. It isn't Emma, but she is very rude. In spite of everything, little Libisha decides to name the animal Lisha. She comments that, although no one calls her by that name, it is extremely precious to her, and for that reason, she would give it to the puppy. Everything becomes blurry, and the princess wakes up coughing, realizing she is in the palace's medicine room, deducing that she fainted once again due to the heavy impact of the recovered memory. She cannot remember properly. In the background, she overhears a serious medical conversation. Rox explains to Kine that the princess's symptoms are due to a fissure in her soul, rather than a mental shock. He reveals that Raphaelis is a disease of the soul, and that Libisha is suffering the worst possible side effects. Rox concludes devastatingly that the pains will worsen and that she will not live for more than 2 years. Since the protagonist knows her soul swapped places with the true princess's, She understands that the tragic diagnosis does not apply directly to her in a real physical sense, but the situation hurts her deeply. The voice of little Libercia naming the dog keeps echoing in the protagonist's mind. Feeling a massive sense of helplessness for not being able to change the princess's painful past or hug her, she begins to cry in silence. Outside the door, Kine says it is best they leave to grant privacy to their liege. The princess reflects, with irony and sadness, that they have no idea of the real reason behind her tears. Upon opening her eyes, she notices the presence of a mysterious young blonde man in her room, whose radiant beauty resembles that of an angel. She recalls that he had already appeared by surprise in her quarters once before, startling her so much that it caused her to faint. When questioned about his identity, the young man calmly replies that he is an angel. Although she finds his audacity comical, his presence comforts her. Unable to control her own impulses in front of the young man's beauty, the protagonist brings her hand close to his face. Since he does not draw back, she feels a bit perverted, but takes advantage of the moment anyway. The young man asks if she will stop crying, and deciding to play along with his game, she smiles and replies that she is fine now because she has just found an angel. The young man reacts in a cold and distant manner, making the atmosphere heavy and leaving her internally regretting getting so carried away. Next, he flashes an intriguing smile and asks if she wants to leave with him. The proposal makes her heart race, and she almost catches fire with excitement. Suddenly, Eugene bursts into the room shouting for Her Highness. Faced with the interruption, the young man quickly retreats toward the window. Eugene draws his sword and demands to know the intruder's identity, but the young man simply smiles, reveals that his name is Harris, and asks her not to forget him, calling her Leisha. He promises they will see each other at the next opportunity and vanishes. In shock, the protagonist realizes too late that he is the Harris from the original story. Kine approaches and asks if the princess is all right, informing her that Sir Volton has already initiated a pursuit of the intruder. Libercia thanks Kine for the support, but reflects in silence that Eugene will hardly be able to capture him, since Harris was infamous for being extremely slippery in the book. She excuses herself from those present to rest alone. The protagonist recalls Harris's profile. He was the master of shadows and described as a complete lunatic in the original work. Despite possessing the face of an angel, he found pleasure in seeing people cry, which was why he pursued the original protagonist, Ariel, sometimes helping her, sometimes making her cry just to appreciate her beauty in those moments. Eventually, he also fell in love with Ariel and met a tragic end, sacrificing his own life to save her. She recalls the melancholy scene of Harris's death in the book, where he coughed up blood and confessed that he only wanted to see her cry for him just once, while Ariel wept desperately, crying out for the crown prince. Finding the outcome unfair and painful for such a striking character, Libercia vows to herself that this time she will change his destiny to save him. In another scene, Harris appears thoughtful in his hideout, replaying in his mind the smile and the tear-stained face of Princess Libercia. He recalls the moment she called him an angel and assumes that the scent of the tears on her trembling hands fascinated him, awakening a desire to watch her all day long. Harris's moment of reflection is abruptly interrupted by a subordinate who enters complaining that he looked for him all day and that there is a mountain of accumulated work to resolve. Irritated, Harris tells him to shut his mouth and orders him to investigate everything about Princess Libercia. Surprised, the subordinate questions if it was love at first sight. With a threatening glare, Harris demands the slightest details about her, except for matters related to her bedroom, to prevent the spy from being discovered. The subordinate reluctantly accepts the task. Aware that Harris is now interested in her, the protagonist sees this as a good opportunity to get close and save him. To avoid throwing any more fainting spells in front of such beauty, she decides to focus her energy on a hobby, renewing her companion's wardrobe. She asks Eugene what his favorite color is. He replies that he likes white. She plans an elegant and clean look for him, matching his beautiful silver hair and highlighting his striking lips. Eugene comments shyly that he was always told only extravagant clothes suited him, finding the style suggested by her refreshing. Next, the protagonist turns to Kine and suggests an opposite concept, a sophisticated look with dark tones and blacks. She invites them to go shopping, and Kine accepts without resistance. She finds his awkward reaction extremely cute. Furthermore, she discovers that Kine requested an extension of his vacation to help Eugene with her security after the intruder's appearance, which leaves her happy to spend more time with the two of them. During the stroll through the local shops, the princess has a lot of fun choosing elegant clothes and accessories for Kine and Eugene. While analyzing the options in a fabric store, she hears a familiar voice greet her from behind. Upon turning around, she is completely shocked to come face to face with Harris once again in broad daylight. Upon coming face to face with Harris in the fabric store, Libersha blurts out his name by impulse, but quickly tries to fix it by calling him Mr. Angel. Eugene and Kine snap into high alert and question where she got that nickname from. She explains that the young man himself had introduced himself as an angel the night before. Eugene is shocked. In her thoughts, she begs Eugene to understand that neither of them is quite right in the head. Aloud, she asks how Harris found her there, and he responds mockingly that, because he is an angel, he knows everything. Eugene and Kine do not seem to like that very much, haha. Harris approaches and invites Libersha to play with him, promising it will be fun. With that, Harris tries on a cloak, which Libersha thinks looks absolutely horrible. As expected, the tension rises and Harris enters a verbal clash with Eugene and Kine, who demand that he reveal his true identity and stay away from her. Thinking that the boys are fighting over her, which leaves her secretly flattered, yet terrified of fainting from the intense emotion, the protagonist steps in and suggests that they all go shopping together to calm things down. Harris accepts the invitation and joins the group for the shopping marathon. The protagonist recalls that, in the original work, the heroine Ariel was always very cautious and wary of him. Looking at his current outfit, she understands why. Harris's sense of fashion is a total disaster. Bothered by his pretentious and nonsensical style, her pride as a fan takes over. She grabs several elegant pieces from the racks and commands him to try on the new options. Stepping out of the dressing room in the clothes she selected, Harris appears with an impeccable and sophisticated look. The protagonist claps enthusiastically and praises the transformation, feeling like she has achieved inner peace. Slightly flustered, Harris asks if she is really going to buy those pieces for him, and she generously confirms. Entering a full-on shopping spree, the protagonist points at the racks and announces she is taking practically everything in the store, finding it wonderful to spend the funds she brought from the palace. She tries to pile more gifts onto Kine, who gets bashful at the sheer amount and tries to refuse, but she begs him to accept her affection. Meanwhile, Kine observes the scene, puzzled as to why the princess is being so attentive and generous with someone as suspicious as Harris. He then looks at a piece of jewelry in a small box, a gift from Libersha to him. He is very grateful for all the presents. Libersha is overjoyed by this. Noticing her joy in gifting everyone, Eugene tries to refuse yet another item, but gives in upon seeing the sad, puppy dog eyes she makes at him. Next, Harris questions why she is buying so many things for others and absolutely nothing for herself. Libersha stands frozen for a moment, only realizing just now that it is true. Despite this, she flashes a beautiful smile and replies that she doesn't need material goods, thinking to herself that having their company and presence by her side is already more than enough. Harris, however, acts completely contrary and simply walks away. Libersha does not understand what happened, but calls Eugene and Kine to continue their shopping. The scene shifts to a busy city street. A woman in a rush bumps into pedestrians and drops her belongings on the ground. A young man complains that this is turning out to be the worst day of his life and walks away, stepping right on the woman's dress. Wow, how oblivious. In the background, citizens comment on a recent, bizarre job posting, mocking that no one in their right mind would accept that position. The mysterious woman gets up, gathers her things, and thinks to herself that even a cruel woman needs people working for her. Vivian, unlike other noble girls her age, always had a great interest in administration and finance. However, after the birth of her younger brother, the family's official heir, Vivian was forbidden from continuing her studies. Without giving up, she used the excuse of helping with her brother's education to keep learning in secret. Upon discovering that her parents were planning an arranged marriage behind her back, Vivian ran away from home with nothing and survived by taking shelter at friends' houses, until she managed to land a job as a maid in the royal palace. One day, while helping the other maids correct an error in an accounting book, pointing out that the quantity of wine bottles and the prices did not match, Vivian caught the crown prince's attention. Impressed by her talent, he hired her as his private secretary. Vivian ended up falling in love with the prince for recognizing her worth, but her feelings were never reciprocated. Following the heir's marriage to the young Ariel, Vivian resigned and moved to the countryside, disappearing forever. The current protagonist, who reincarnated into Libercia's body, reflects on this sad ending. Knowing that the original plot is about to begin, and that Vivian must currently be hopping from house to house among friends, Libercia decides to act to change her destiny. To attract the talented young woman, Libercia mapped out a perfect trap. She ordered Emma to publish a job opening with the worst possible conditions and a practically non-existent salary. She knows that no one in their right mind would accept the position unless they were in a state of extreme desperation, exactly like Vivian. Libercia's intention is to bring her to her side and give her total freedom to manage her business, ensuring that everyone in the palace, including the faithful Emma, has a wealthy and comfortable old age. While laughing to herself, imagining the plan's success, she hugs Emma and promises that the staff member will never have to worry about money again. Libercia celebrates the fact that things are going well, remembering that the memories from when the original owner of the body was 13 were extremely peaceful. With less than 2 months left before the official plot begins, her next goal is to tame Harris. That's when the man himself shows up at the window like a cat, and he seems a bit disappointed to see that she is always smiling when he appears. Libercia comments that she finds him a very interesting person, but the moment is suddenly interrupted. Kyne walks into the room, notices Harris there, and doesn't quite like what he sees. Libercia chats affectionately with Kyne, while Harris ends up being left aside. The green-eyed youth addresses Libercia as you, which causes deep displeasure in Kyne. He demands that Harris address the princess properly. The two begin to bicker like a couple of primary school kids, and Libercia cannot hold back her laughter. Harris immediately grows interested, thinking she is crying, but gets disappointed upon seeing her smile. What a strange guy. Disappointed that he can't make her cry or even kill her. Kyne concludes that Harris is a dangerous presence and decides that, for now, the best option is to strike him down once and for all. Kyne uses his magic and creates a sword of darkness, hurling it at Harris. The boy, however, dodges all the attacks with ease. He then decides to leave and says goodbye to Libercia, calling her Leisha, and vanishes in the blink of an eye, promising to return when she is alone. Following the intruder's departure, Kyne warns that Harris is dangerous. The princess thanks him for his concern and apologizes for making him spend his days off to protect her, though he ends up being quite grateful for it anyway. With a tender look, he replies that he is happy with the situation, as it allows him to spend much more time by her side. Oh, how cute. The wait was a little longer than expected, but Libercia recognizes that it was all worth it when Emma sends her 5 selected candidates for the final interview. To her satisfaction, Vivian is in the group. However, when Libercia questions them about their reason for applying for the position, the atmosphere grows heavy. The princess inquires if they haven't heard the terrible rumors circulating about her. The candidates, however, remain silent. Libercia sighs, noticing that although her reputation has improved slightly, the collective fear of her figure remains the same. Vivian takes the initiative. She confesses that she didn't think she would make it here alive, given Libercia's reputation for being as cruel as ice. However, upon looking at the princess up close, Vivian sees no hatred or disgust in her gaze, feeling an unexpected wave of relief. She then explains that her hesitation stems from being a woman, since the position of imperial secretary is usually reserved for men. Libercia reprimands her for her questioning tone, but Vivian defends herself by saying this has everything to do with her application. She held on to the hope that the princess would feel more comfortable being served by someone of the same sex, though she feared being discarded due to general prejudice. Impressed by the young woman's courage, Libercia praises her honesty, which shocks her. Next, she asks what Vivian thinks about the court gossip. The candidate replies that she doesn't care about rumors regarding strangers and that, if she gets to know the person, she prefers to judge for herself instead of listening to third parties. Satisfied with the young woman's assertive and perceptive posture, Libersha dismisses the other contestants. As they leave, the other candidates mumble, frustrated by the peculiar style of the interview, but Evian is filled with hope. For her, who was sidelined by her family in favor of her brother and almost forced into an unhappy marriage, this opportunity at court is her last and greatest chance to change her life. Upon being officially hired, Evian gets emotional and promises to work herself to death, only to be promptly stopped by the princess, who humorously asks her to work at a normal pace instead. Libersha presents the one-year co-executive business contract and reveals her future plans. She intends to step down and leave Evian in full command of the company, as she plans to leave the place soon. Charmed by her new boss's transparency, Evian reads the terms, but turns pale and hesitates upon analyzing the financial clauses. Later, Evian reappears before Libersha after thoroughly reading the contract, protesting that the terms are absurdly unfair, yet unfair to the princess herself, as the benefits and amounts are excessively generous and entirely in Evian's favor. Libersha brushes it off, takes the paper back, and argues that the payment is fair given all the heavy lifting Evian will be doing in her stead. Touched by such grand generosity, the new administrator accepts the deal, burning with pure determination, and promises to bring the best possible results before running off to get to work. I like her. Following Evian's departure, Libersha prepares to access the 14th memory of her body's original owner. In the memory, a 14-year-old little Libersha observes the gifts received on her birthday. Emma shows her a perfect miniature replica of the princess's palace. Upon discovering that the object is actually a luxurious doghouse, the young Libersha adopts a cold and bitter expression. She orders Emma to give the doghouse to someone else and to get rid of Lisha as well. The protagonist awakens from the vision in shock and deeply intrigued, completely unable to understand the reasons behind so much bitterness in the former Libersha's childhood. Libersha then analyzes the dark content of the birthday note she saw in the memory. Congratulations on surviving this year too. She concludes that the message was far from an affectionate wish, sounding short and deeply disturbing. Despite the unsettling tone, she comforts herself for having recovered yet another piece of the past. Having passed 42 days since her arrival in this world, Libersha decides that the time has finally come to act to save an important character. The character in question is Jane. In the original story, Jane became Ariel's personal maid after being saved by the heroine from a group of wrongdoers. Her original trajectory was tragic. After a terrible fire, she ended up separated from her twin brothers, and throughout the book, she missed encounters with them by mere millimeters several times due to a burn scar on her face that made her unrecognizable. To make matters worse, Jane ended up dying tragically by mistakenly drinking the bitter poison that the villainous Libersha had prepared for Ariel. Knowing that the twins became disciples of the assassin guild leader and that an arson fire is predicted to happen in the city a month from now, Libersha decides to intervene before tragedy destroys the family. While walking through the city, Libersha comes across a frightened young woman who begs for her life before the princess. Upon hearing them call her Jane, the princess confirms the young woman's identity. Jane cries desperately, trembling and begging for mercy as she reports that she has younger brothers who will starve to death without her. However, Libersha notices an inconsistency, since the girl mentions 3 brothers instead of 2. Eugene tries to remove the girl from there, but Libersha stops him and reaches out her hand to her, caressing her face and telling her not to cry. Libersha asks the boys' ages, joking that she likes to behave like a fairy godmother. Upon hearing Jane's stomach rumble with hunger, she decides to give her something to eat and only meet her brothers afterward. While they watch the boys running and playing in the distance, Kine approaches Libersha. He questions the true reason she is doing all of this for strangers, pointing out that the princess acts far too altruistically while neglecting herself. Libersha counters with a calm smile, reaffirming that she does all of this solely for her own personal satisfaction. Jane returns and Libersha apologizes for the delay, handing over the documentation for a new property in the young woman's name. The princess announces that she bought the house for them and will act as the family's financial patron for a year, allowing Jane and her brothers to live with dignity doing what they like. She requests that her identity be kept an absolute secret, but Jane notices the imperial seal engraved on the papers and is left in shock upon hearing her benefactor officially introduce herself as Princess Libercia Ram Trial. The noblewoman asks the girl not to worry and to just enjoy the chance to be happy alongside her family. Jane cries and refuses to accept a gift of such immense value without giving anything in return. In an impulse of gratitude, she kneels down and begs to become Libercia's servant, swearing absolute loyalty. Libercia tries to stop her, thinking that the young woman cannot retrace the same tragic path of servitude from the original novel, especially since she herself intends to flee from there in a few weeks to save her own skin. Thus, she says her time is short, comforting the young woman and asking her to just rest and live well. Jane tries to continue, but Eugene makes a sign for silence, so she will just accept it. And at that exact moment, Kyne turns to the side, left completely perplexed by what he had just heard from Libercia. Libercia says goodbye to Jane and her younger brothers, receiving warm thanks and cheerful waves from the children. Relieved to have changed the course of events, the protagonist reflects on the plot of the original book. She understands that, in the novel, Jane had only gotten involved with the heroine Ariel out of sheer desperation to get food for her family. However, the girl's youngest brother ended up dying of malnutrition even before the central events of the plot began. Proud and moved that her own intervention prevented this fatality and guaranteed the family's integrity, Libercia feels capable of overcoming any obstacle from then on. Man, this warmed my heart. However, Eugene interrupts her thoughts, recalling that Libercia promised to support the siblings for only 1 year and questions the reason for such a short time frame, pointing out that the princess's tone makes it sound like she will no longer be around after that period. Libercia tries to soften the situation. She confesses that upon discovering her illness, her initial plan was to run away immediately. The revelation deeply shakes the young men, and Harris, adopting a mature and tense expression that catches the protagonist by surprise, demands to know where she intends to go and calls her an idiot for thinking of abandoning them like that. Faced with the shock and commotion of her protectors, Libercia tries to calm their racing hearts and changes the subject. She explains that she decided to postpone her departure for a year, complying with a direct request from the Emperor, and insists that they should not keep dwelling on the matter. Looking into their eyes, she confesses that her only wish is for everyone to be able to smile and say a friendly goodbye when the final moment arrives. "I don't accept this. Libercia, you have to become the queen. I need to see you as queen." Kyne recalls that his initial plan was to use her as a political pawn, but now he realizes how much Libercia's presence and the warmth of her friendship have transformed him. Feeling pushed away, he deeply regrets that the princess never shares her pain with them. Meanwhile, the following morning, Jane's brothers wake up amazed and dazzled by the comfort of their new home, finding it hard to believe they aren't living a dream. Jane watches them tenderly and recalls the immense difficulties they faced in the past, when they had to resort to petty theft and cheating on the streets just to avoid starving to death. She remembers the exact moment she tried to pickpocket Libercia's coin purse on the street, judging that such a wealthy, well-dressed noblewoman would never miss a bit of loose change. However, the plan failed when Kyne intervened. At that moment, Libercia acted with absolute benevolence. She held back Kyne and Eugene, wiped away Jane's tears, and instead of punishing her, gave her family housing, support, and a new perspective on life. When she went inside the house, she noticed that the princess had left a coin purse behind during the visit and ran out in a hurry to try and return it before she drove away. Upon spotting the royal carriage from afar, Jane ended up overhearing Libercia's conversation and the princess's declaration about her illness and her decision to leave in a year. Jane is left in complete shock and her heart sinks. She lets her tears fall as she realizes Libercia's tragic fate. In the middle of the night, Harris, Eugene, and Kyne converse in one of the palace corridors. Harris comments that Libercia is acting very differently from the past and points out that he has seen dozens of people on the brink of death before, But the princess is a unique case. Intrigued, Kine questions the reason for such a statement, to which the young man explains that she possesses no attachment to the world. While most dying people fall into despair and envy the lives of others, Libersha acts like someone completely ready to die at any moment without leaving a trace, and it is for this reason that he cannot understand how to make her cry. Kine grits his teeth upon hearing that. Harris concludes that the dark rumors surrounding the palace are well-founded and confesses that he finds the princess a fascinating woman from whom it is impossible to look away. Later, the young man sneaks into the princess's quarters while she is fast asleep. He reflects on his own aversion to getting involved in complex plots, but as he observes her face, he notices tears streaming from her closed eyes. Harris touches Libersha's face, wipes away one of the drops, and tastes it, noting its salty flavor. With a tender look, he whispers to himself that he won't be able to bear seeing her cry in the future, and mentally asks her to hold on tight for a little longer. The next morning, Libersha has a bizarre and absurd dream, triggered by her own hidden desires. In her nocturnal delirium, she saw herself surrounded by Eugene and Kine in very sensual ways. Meanwhile, the Mr. Angel, Harris, brushed his rivals aside with his charm, claiming to be the best. However, he is contradicted by the protagonist herself, who says that number one is Libersha, not him. Haha, I liked that. To top off the madness, little Jane appeared transformed into a jealous puppy that fiercely lunged at Eugene to defend her from his seductive advances. Whoa. Libersha wakes up by falling out of bed. It looks like she tossed and turned a lot, right? The princess deeply regrets that it was all just a dream. Naughty girl. Sitting at the table, the princess asks Emma if there is any machine or tool in that world capable of capturing an exact moment in an image. Emma questions if she wishes to freeze time, and Libersha confirms it, explaining with a melancholy expression that she thinks it's a shame she cannot keep physical memories of the people she loves to help her endure during difficult times. Seeing that Emma turned pale with worry over her employer's tone of farewell, Libersha changes the subject and focuses on her routine. Linny, Irene, and even the new employee Ivian are completely buried in work. She feels bored from not seeing their pretty faces for 2 days and decides to occupy her time investigating her highest priority at the moment, gathering information about Daniel to avoid being killed by the crown prince in the future. Libersha looks for Kine in his quarters but cannot find him. Searching through shelves filled with interesting books, she finds an extremely old, worn-out, and dust-covered book titled The 10 Wonders of the Continent. As she flips through the pages, she notices that only 9 of them are explained in detail, with the 10th being dedicated to Raphalis, the mysterious and little-known disease of the soul. Continuing her reading, Libersha comes across a record about an artificial spirit, something she herself possesses through her magical diary. To her absolute astonishment, the pages reveal that the nation responsible for creating these artificial spirits was the fallen kingdom of Robin. Daniel's kingdom. This is getting more and more interesting, huh? Libersha closes the book, impacted by the discovery that Robin, Daniel's homeland, was the kingdom responsible for creating the artificial spirits. Knowing that this is a crucial clue, she decides to take her reading to her room, and on the way, her mouth begins to water at the thought of ordering a sweet treat to accompany her studies. That is when Eugene, Harris, and Kine arrive right there. Libersha celebrates their reunion after a 2-day absence. However, the sudden sight of so many dazzling figures together causes a beauty overdose in her mind. Feeling her immunity against other people's charm fail drastically, the princess faints on the floor. Ah, damn, I hate it when we get a beauty overdose from others. Kine recalls that, initially, he calculated every step and viewed Libersha merely as a perfect political pawn, regardless of her personality or fragility. Even after she refused his implicit suggestion to ascend the throne, he chose to remain by her side to observe her, viewing his presence as an act of charity for someone who had always lived isolated and helpless at court, without feeling any guilt or caring about others' difficulties. He himself did not know how to define whether what he felt was romance, sympathy, or friendship. However, the memories of the princess's recent revelation change everything. Recalling Libersha's words about her illness and her plan to leave in a year, Kine feels a deep pain and the uncomfortable sensation of being abandoned. He realizes that, at some point along the way, the young woman stopped being a pawn and became someone for whom he nurtures sincere and deep feelings. Anguished and with a heavy heart, he perceives the harsh reality. They weren't the ones choosing to stay by her side. It was Libercia who accepted remaining with them. Kine grows desperate, unable to understand why she hides her pain and does not share the burden of her suffering with the group. Meanwhile, the truth spreads through the palace corridors. None of the staff members knew the true severity of the situation, judging that their employer was just a bit fragile. However, upon hearing Jane's account of what she overheard on the street, the shock is universal. Emma collapses to the floor, trembling and in tears, upon hearing the confirmation that the princess is a carrier of the terrible Rafali's disease. Jane cries and recounts the painful request the princess had made the previous day, when she sought a way to capture and eternalize her precious memories before leaving. In the background, Daniel observes the commotion in silence, remembering having seen Libercia crying during her sleep the night before. Emma tries to find out what is happening to her princess, as she thought she was just a little sick, but now Rock states that Libercia has Rafali's. Emma's legs give out in the despair of losing her princess. She speaks about the princess not wanting to leave her memories behind. The young men fall into deep sadness. Harris tries to question why she simply didn't speak about what was happening, but stops, remembering that she was crying while sleeping. Eugene asks Rox why Libercia has not woken up yet. The doctor explains with sorrow that the progression of Rafali's is completely unstable and unpredictable, warning that the group needs to prepare for the worst-case scenario. Emma grabs Rox by the collar amidst her tears, demanding that he fulfill his duty and do the impossible to save her, refusing to accept that it is too late. Beside the bed, Harris observes the princess's sleeping face and enters a whirlwind of anguish. He admits to himself that the only reason he endured the monotony of the court was Libercia's vibrant presence and her welcoming smiles. The young man recalls Daniel's past warnings about the dangers of getting attached to the villainous and confesses his regret for not listening to the advice, consumed by the dread of never seeing the sparkle in the princess's purple eyes again. Kine confronts the doctor, Rox, and demands that he immediately reveal what the group can do to bring Libercia back and explain the hidden origin of all that suffering. My expectations only grow with this manhwa. What a delight. Libercia awakens in an ethereal setting after fainting in the palace, realizing that her syncope was caused by an excess of beauty upon seeing her friends again. Noticing the mystical aura around her, she perceives that she is in the spiritual plane of memories. Spotting the silhouette of the original Villainess from behind, the protagonist runs and shouts Libercia's name excitedly. Enchanted by the grace and elegance that the figure exudes even from afar, determined to play a prank to surprise her. The reception, however, is cold and cutting. The original Libercia turns her face away and complains about the inevitable reunion. Faced with the protagonist's excitement, the Villainess's soul demands that she change her posture and wipe the smile off her face. The former owner of the body dictates an important rule. She orders that, the next time she needs to communicate, the protagonist must not shout or cry her name, and instead simply whisper in her ear within the memory space. Happy with the revelation, the protagonist promises not to be annoying and takes advantage of the Villainess's generosity to ask a crucial question. She questions whether she will be able to remain permanently in that body once all the memories are recovered. Inquiring also about what will happen to the original soul. The former Libercia's countenance becomes melancholy and nostalgic. Before she can give any answer, her figure begins to dissipate, causing the protagonist to wake up abruptly in her royal bed, frustrated at being left without clarification, but relieved to know that that was not their final meeting. Libercia encounters Irene, who displays an exhausted physiognomy and a hoarse voice. Relieved, the maid shouts for Emma to announce that the princess has finally woken up. Emma runs in and, in a panic, warns that she will fetch Dr. Rox, ignoring her employer's protests that everything is fine. Immediately after, the other allies enter the quarters. Libercia becomes confused by the tense atmosphere. and the taciturn look of Harris, who shows deep dark circles under his eyes. Concerned about the aesthetics of their beautiful faces, the princess despairs internally and begins to scold the young men, saying that sleepless nights will ruin their perfect skin and health. Rox approaches to examine the patient under the group's orders. Trying to calm the waters, Libercia asks Linny and Irene to wipe away their tears, justifying that losing a whole day of sleep because of a fever is not a big deal. It is then that Irene corrects her and reveals the truth. The princess had been unconscious for 3 whole days. She adds that even the emperor expressed concern upon receiving the report about his daughter's state of unconsciousness. The mention of the sovereign's interest causes Libercia's alert signal to go off, viewing her father's attention as a dangerous death flag that will draw the crown prince's wrath against her. Noticing the silence in the room and the expressions of Eugene and Harris, who are not even fighting as usual, Libercia's nervousness increases. Feeling the need to sort out her thoughts, Libercia clutches the sheets and politely asks to be left alone for a moment to think. Libercia tries to maintain her optimism in the face of the complicated situation, rationalizing that it is normal for the emperor to show some public concern for a princess's health. She asks Emma to prepare her clothes for the meeting with the sovereign, confident that the crown prince will think the same way. She calms down, remembering that she has already given up any right to the throne, and that, if there are problems, the best thing to do is face them head-on. Since the meeting with the villainess's soul in her dream prevented the recovery of traditional memories, this time, the princess is unsure whether she should just ignore what happened or try to question her again in the future. Noticing the hesitation and the apprehensive countenances of Emma and her maids, Libercia asks what is wrong. The staff express concern about seeing their mistress being summoned by the emperor so soon, after waking up from a 3-day coma. Touched by their affection, the princess gently pats their heads and reassures them that she is feeling perfectly well. Soon after, her knights and protectors appear there. Feeling secure, Libercia reassures the maids that she is not weak and will return shortly, proud that she is no longer alone. Libercia walks through the corridors, flanked by Eugene, Harris, and Daniel. She points out that only she was summoned and questions whether it is a good idea for the young men to accompany her, but Eugene and Kind counter, claiming they need to be nearby in case she collapses again. Libercia is internally amused by the sudden complicity among the 3 and notices that her nervousness has decreased, though she becomes confused when the knights move ahead of her in an imposing manner. Man, she is already a queen, look at that. 3 knights protecting her, haha, this is so good. Upon arriving, they see a large crowd in the palace hall, generating whispers and surprised comments about the princess's new posture and elegance. Thinking they are just curious people wanting to see the famous Villainess, Libercia mentally brags about her entourage of gorgeous men. Eugene and Harris smirk, proud to see the court finally recognize the princess's value. Kind observes the scene with his usual mystery, which makes Libercia shrug, but appreciate his beauty just the same. Upon reaching the door of the imperial hall, the princess says goodbye to the group to enter alone, knowing she has a great challenge ahead of her. Outside, Eugene and Harris begin to whisper. Eugene advises the young man, saying that being honest is the best way to be loved, but Harris gets annoyed and demands that he speak more clearly. Kind interjects in the conversation to mock Harris, pointing out that, despite the young man being quick to gather information, he manages to be extremely dense when the subject involves feelings. Furious at feeling played for a fool by the 2 older men, Harris complains about their audacity, while his rivals hold back their laughter. Inside the hall, Libercia bows before the throne. The emperor receives her with a very gentle tone of voice and asks her to sit down. Intrigued by her father's change of posture, she accepts the seat while he mentions having been informed about his daughter's fainting spell. Libercia downplays what happened, comparing the 3-day coma to a mere longer nap. When the monarch asks if she still maintains her desire to leave the palace, Libercia confirms it, reinforcing that she yearns for this above all else and secretly hoping that the emperor realizes she is harmless and makes the crown prince forget her existence once and for all. The sovereign asks if she is indeed satisfied with this arrangement. Faced with Libercia's affirmative answer, The emperor says that the crown prince has been asking about her and that her brother knew perfectly well that the princess had spent 3 days unconscious, showing sincere concern for her state of health. Oh, damn, this is not good. The news hits Libercia's mind like a bombshell. Desperate and in a panic, Libercia views the dangerous brother's sudden interest as the worst possible scenario. Tricky emperor. The emperor explains that he passed on his daughter's request to abdicate and leave the palace to the heir. Libercia is left not knowing whether to laugh or cry at the situation. Noticing the princess's visible discomfort and stuttering upon the announcement that her brother will visit her soon, the monarch ends the audience and asks her to go rest. Stumbling and frightened, Libercia leaves the imperial hall, trying to process the imminent danger. Since the main plot has not yet started and the heroine Ariel has not even appeared, she concludes that the crown prince has always watched her closely and maintained a much greater caution than he let on. The sovereign recalls the moment when Lavrov questioned him directly about Libercia. As he is the heir, the son of the only woman the emperor truly loved, he could not refuse the request, revealing everything about the princess's abdication plans, except for her fatal illness. Faced with this, Lavrov requested a personal meeting to ascertain his sister's intentions. In hindsight, the emperor fears he was imprudent to expose his daughter to the palace power games. This emperor is dumb as hell, my God. What a dumb guy. Believing that Lavrov is not cruel to the weak, the emperor orders the crown prince to be summoned to instruct him to act with total caution and moderation, given the princess's fragility. Meanwhile, Libercia falls into despair upon discovering that her knights must also participate in the meeting by imperial order, with the intention of softening the atmosphere. The princess panics at the possibility of her beloved allies ending up killed by the maniac. Oh, come on, Libercia. Eugene, Kine, and Harris aren't weaklings. Lavrov only managed to defeat them because he drew up cowardly plans. Although she tries to imagine an ideal scenario where her brother notices her change and everything is resolved peacefully, the fear of being seen as an enemy and being executed dominates her. In a total crisis, Libercia begins to vomit blood. Eugene quickly sends for rocks. Libercia collapses right then and there, having another fainting spell, deciding that the best thing is simply not to wake up to avoid the confrontation. Oh, Libercia, such a scaredy cat. As she closes her eyes, the protagonist's mind is transported back to the ethereal space of memories. There, she finds the original Libercia floating in a melancholy state, with a lifeless look that recalls her isolated childhood. The protagonist runs toward the villainess's soul and begs for help, exclaiming in despair that the crown prince is going to kill her due to his paranoia and obsession. She is going to end up in the same place as before, with the original Libercia there. The villainess's soul observes her coldly and calmly questions why she is so afraid of him, pointing out that the heir is just more cautious than he appears. Faced with the protagonist's uncontrollable panic about the future murders from the book, the original Libercia lets out a sigh and announces that she will block access to the memories for a while, allowing her to see everything at once in the future. The original Libercia says that her current despair could lead her to a dangerous mental state. Thus, the villainess's soul says goodbye and warns that she will not return, even if they shout for her, instructing the protagonist to call her only when she recovers all the remaining memories. Man, I even got goosebumps here. This is awesome as hell. After the original Libercia blocks access to the memories for an indefinite time, warning that she will only return when all remaining recollections are recovered, the protagonist wakes up back to reality. Feeling like she is back at square one, she reflects on the accumulation of obligations. She has not been able to meet with Daniel yet and still needs to look after the protection of Jane's family. To dismiss the crown prince's paranoia once and for all, Libercia decides to personally show that she is harmless. She concludes that showing obvious fear would only make him more suspicious, and that his palace would be a location far too dangerous for a direct confrontation. Seeking a public and crowded environment, she decides to use the social circle to her advantage. The perfect opportunity arises with Lavrov's birthday ball, an event that the Libercia from the original book would never attend, but which now becomes the stage for her political move. In her room, the maids finalize the preparations for the princess, who spared no effort on her production for the event. Moved by their mistress's stunning look, the staff weep with admiration. "Man, I think I'm in love." They, however, show hesitation and awkwardness toward a specific accessory chosen by Libercia. Although they understand that the item matches the look, they warn that wearing it to a ball is inappropriate. Libercia insists, explaining that the adornment is a crucial tool to dispel her brother's suspicions and make her intentions clear to the entire aristocracy. Confident that this is the fastest way to prove herself harmless and protect her allies, she says goodbye to the maids amid wishes of good luck. In the ballroom, the nobles whisper and spread malicious gossip, claiming that the princess has completely lost her mind and that she was seen running barefoot through the city at night, branding her as a stain on the imperial family. The aristocrats criticize Libercia's delay for the heir's celebration, mocking that she must be busy with some new insanity. On the throne, Prince Lavrov converses with a trusted advisor. The ally comments on the strong rumors that Libercia has officially abdicated the line of succession, suggesting that she no longer represents a threat. Lavrov states that any drastic change brings side effects and demands vigilance. He mentions having heard from a maid that the princess has become a docile and open person, finding the information bizarre. Although Libercia never mistreated the servants in the past, she was never described as gentle. Furthermore, he remains mindful of the fact that she is surrounded by figures of great power and political influence. When the advisor asks if the prince believes his sister desires the throne, Lavrov denies it. He explains that he does not care who the next emperor will be, but makes his possessive side clear. He will never allow Libercia to covet that which belongs solely to him. Questioned about his next actions, the heir admits he has not yet made a decision. The doors of the hall swing open, and the master of ceremonies formally announces the arrival of Princess Libercia Ramtrial. The princess's entrance shocks those present and leaves Lavrov stunned, as he did not expect one thing. Libercia walks through the hall toward the throne where Lavrov is, flaunting her stunning floral dress. But the crucial detail is on her face. She is wearing a funeral veil. Although the use of funeral attire is strictly prohibited at birthday celebrations in the empire, tradition dictates that, outside a context of mourning, the accessory carries another meaning. Lavrov interrupts his sister's initial greetings and stares at the adornment, perfectly understanding Libercia's message. The funeral veil is the ultimate symbol of surrender and a sign of defeat in the games for the throne. By paying her respects using the veil, an explicit symbol of defeat, she publicly admits that the crown prince is her suzerain. This swift and calculated maneuver is the only way out she can find in a short time to disarm Lavrov's suspicions. Lavrov sees in that submission the perfect opportunity to subjugate the princess and the Villainess family, overcoming his only political weakness: the fact that his mother possessed no noble status. Suspicious that the gesture hides a trap, he questions her on whether the birthday gift demands something in return, mocking internally that he will use her as brief entertainment before killing her. Behind the scenes, an assassin from the guild awaits only his signal to take the princess's life. Lavrov is convinced that everything in the palace belongs to him and that his sister's valuable gift is nothing more than a cheap distraction. However, the princess's response takes him by surprise. With extreme humility, she states that she desires nothing more than to live in peace. As a last favor, she asks His Highness to start treating her as if she simply did not exist, shocking the prince with her detachment from the dispute for the throne. The princess's audacity and apparent change provoke a turnaround in Lavrov's mind. Considering submission a small price for such a grand gift, he temporarily accepts the terms and orders her to withdraw. While planning to wrench the truth from his sister's entrails and humiliate her slowly before the end, the prince summons his subordinate Gile, ordering them to call off the immediate attack so they can watch her steps closely. The princess's departure leaves the guards and servants in an uproar, whispering about the drastic change in Her Highness's behavior. In the hall, the accumulated tension results in a small accident when glassware shatters on the floor, forcing those present to back away in a hurry while commenting on the crown prince's unpredictable temperament. Explosive the guy is a psychopath. Suddenly, a certain someone lets his wine glass drop to the floor, before flashing a proud smile while uttering Harris's name. I think we know who this handsome guy here is, right? The man recalls an argument with Harris, who did not want to follow the princess there, stating he only wanted to see her cry. However, he thinks he won't be needing him anymore. Libercia's figure catches his attention unexpectedly due to her captivating beauty and elegance, leaving a striking impression even after her humble farewell bow. Leaving the hall, the princess breathes a sigh of relief with the end of the party. Aware that the suspicious crown prince will investigate every detail of her current life, she already architectures her next step, offering help so that Lavrov can win the heart of Ariel, the heroine of the original story. Although she did not want to get involved with the protagonist, she knows this deal will be irresistible to him, guaranteeing the peace of mind she needs to put her secret plan into practice. Finding Daniel through the library books. Recalling the details of the original story, the princess remembers that Daniel always wore a cloak to hide his ruby-red eyes, a distinctive trait of those born from the union between an artificial spirit and a mortal. Determined to find him in the moonlight garden, she interrupts her thoughts upon sneezing due to the cold night wind. Worried about not catching a cold that would alarm everyone, she decides to return to the palace interior. Exhausted from the intrigues and desiring only a peaceful life so she can fangirl over her favorite characters, the princess focuses her energy on the dinner that awaits her. Imagining the chef giving affectionate lectures for her to eat more, she agrees to give up her royal dignity in exchange for a good meal. What she didn't know is that she was being watched by a certain someone. Lavrov's subordinate was observing the princess when Lavrov himself arrives there. Intrigued by her statement that she would have more important things to lose, the prince questions what a woman with no possessions, wealth, or political power could possibly have to lose. The spy points out that her failing health always kept her locked away in her room, but her posture, vulnerable and firm at the same time, awakens a new and bothersome suspicion. Lavrov mentally replays Libercia's request for him to treat her as if she did not exist. Although he finds the idea of paying her a surprise visit to throw her off balance amusing, he decides that, having received such a valuable and well-planned gift, it is only fair to keep up appearances and leave her in peace for now, opting to just observe her movements from afar. Libercia finally arrives in her room and yawns sleepily. Attributing her excellent mood to the meat banquet, she wonders why the crown prince has not yet appeared to demand explanations. Knowing she needs to hurry with her plan to offer a deal regarding Ariel to soothe Lavrov's temper, she decides it is still fundamental to continue the search for Daniel, in case things go wrong in the negotiation. Consulting her diary, the princess plans her next few days and focuses on finishing the writing on the last page. She ponders that going after Daniel alone could be dangerous, but if she manages to seal a pact with the guardian spirit of the diary itself, she will have a guarantee of protection. Upon finishing the writing, an intense, magical light consumes the room, materializing the entity, and the spirit's name, Jen, instantly echoes in her mind. The spirit asks for the name of its new contractor, to which she proudly replies that she is Libercia Ramtrial. The pact is sealed with a subtle touch from Jen, who confesses to finding the contents of the diary quite unusual. He points out that the pages were so full of exaggerated compliments for small, everyday things that he even considered whether his master had lost her mind. Wonder why that is, Libercia. Fascinated and confused by the protagonist's mind, Jen begins to question her about her notes, wanting to understand why giving a home to the girl Jane made the world seem beautiful, and why Libercia cries every time she is touched by handsome characters. Dying of embarrassment from having her fan secrets exposed, the princess panics and commands the spirit to return immediately to the inside of the diary. Calm returns when the servant Irene knocks on the door to ask if the princess desires another hearty meal for dinner. Joyful at the prospect of more good food, Libercia accepts and smiles radiantly, while Irene walks away to pass the request to the chef. Elsewhere, we hear footsteps on the floor. Yes, it's him, the big boss. Daniel. He reflects on the name Libercia Ramtrial. The man concludes that he should kill her before it's too late, as he sensed a strangely familiar scent coming from her. All while showing off his physique for us, right cheeky guy. However, he decides that it wouldn't hurt to observe her a little longer before delivering the final blow, sealing a new and terrible threat over the princess's fate. Taking advantage of the fact that Kine and Eugene seem completely occupied with their own duties, Libercia decides to sneak out of the palace and goes alone to a local bar. Upon arriving there, she tries to maintain her sobriety by ordering a non-alcoholic drink, but the attendant, confused, confesses that the establishment only serves the options on the menu. Cursing the limited imagination of that universe's author, she asks for a recommendation for something weak and ends up choosing an option with a sweet-sounding name, ignoring the nervousness of the bartender, who hesitates to serve her before disappearing into the back to prepare the order. The effect of the drink is immediate and devastating. With just one sip, Libercia feels her head spinning like a Beyblade, not knowing if the drink was incredibly strong, if her current body is alcohol intolerant, or if her mysterious illness is taking its toll. Relieved to know that the spirit Jen is nearby to guarantee her safety if something goes wrong, she falters at the counter when an unknown man approaches. Possessing a deeply seductive and addictive voice, the hooded young man asks to sit next to her due to the supposed lack of space in the place, receiving a warm and tipsy reception from the princess, who does not hide her enthusiasm in front of handsome men. She's already a bit cheeky when sober, imagine her drunk now. Oh my God. The stranger, well known to us, starts a conversation by pointing out that the drink in the young woman's glass is frighteningly strong, making Libercia finally understand the bartender's hesitation. Although the taste seems bland, the alcohol content is high. The stranger orders a portion of chicken skewers and pushes them in her direction, causing the princess to eat in silence while trying to peek under the mysterious man's hood. Upon being caught trying to decipher his face, she quickly apologizes and looks away. The atmosphere of mystery is suddenly broken by a mental warning shout from Jen, commanding his mistress to be careful. The spirit warns of an overwhelming killing intent coming from the hooded man. Upon focusing on his eyes, she instantly recognizes the characteristic glow of an artificial spirit hybrid. Jen reveals that the man is Daniel Robin, a figure he learned about in the royal archives of Robin. Shocked to realize that the feared Daniel from the original story was right there by her side so early on. Libercia decides to simply ignore the fear, and is thus very happy to finally meet Daniel. Demonstrating a rapid improvement from her drunkenness due to the adrenaline, Libercia interacts with the young man, who introduces himself under the name of Dan. Utterly enchanted and smiling, she assumes the name Leisha and begins showering praises upon the young man's voice and aura, comparing him to the melancholy and welcoming beauty of a late autumn afternoon sky. 2. Daniel is amused by the princess's eccentric behavior. Leisha, however, stands up and turns around, advising him to look at her while he can and warning him that a friend had already seen him before he revealed himself. Left behind by Princess Libercia, finding her infinitely more interesting than he had supposed, Daniel recalls the young woman's enigmatic advice to look at her while he still could, unsure if she was referring to her own terminal illness. However, what truly intrigues him is the fact that she called an artificial spirit a friend. He questions whether the girl even understands the magnitude and the danger of what that means. Back at the palace, despite her nervousness, Libercia tries to focus her thoughts on her next plan, putting the image of Daniel aside. And holy crap, she is having tea with Lavrov. He observes her coldly, asking if the flavor of the rare and sophisticated drink served by Madame Lind is to her liking. Somewhat hesitantly, the princess replies that she is enjoying the beverage. Lavrov goes straight to the point and reveals the true reason for the audience, an order from the emperor to suppress the malicious rumors about Libercia. To achieve this, the heir announces that he has recruited and taken under his direct command the princess's closest advisors, Eugene de Volton and Kine de Iric. With the two knights under his orders, the crown prince relishes the victory of having isolated Libercia from her greatest allies, sadistically awaiting his sister's desperate reaction. Libercia does not yield to the provocation. She argues that the prince should not put in so much effort, as the rumors, originating from her mother's past, would never disappear. She reasons that if Kine and Eugene step away to fulfill this mission, they will be safe and far from danger. Lavrov stands up and threatens to severely punish anyone who insults her, leaving the princess secretly terrified by his murderous coldness. Taking advantage of the opening, Libersha plays her main card and proposes a business deal to the heir. Lavrov reacts with an arrogant smile, questioning if she has lost her mind or forgotten who he is. She fires back, saying she knows exactly what he values most in the world. Ariel Langton. The heroine's name makes the prince hesitate, and Libersha points out that she knows Ariel will finally make her debut in high society, a moment he has been desperately waiting for. Before her brother's obsessed and dangerous eyes, Libersha maintains her focus. She reveals she knows that he used to visit Lady Ariel's family village when he was just a boy, a secret that many in the nobility already whisper about, and which caused Ariel herself to discover his royal identity ahead of time. Holding back tears of relief upon seeing that her reader knowledge had an impact, the princess moves forward with the negotiation. The princess delivers her final argument. As a good sister and someone who understands social isolation, she knows that Lavrov, having never been in a romantic relationship, will fatally mess things up with his intense and awkward approach. Recalling the past where young Ariel tried to interact with the prince by calling him Mr. Fairy, without getting an answer, Libersha offers her relationship, consulting to guide the heir's steps and guarantee the couple's happiness. In exchange for this detailed advice to ensure he doesn't ruin the romance, she demands that the crown prince seal the pact and guarantee her definitive peace. On another day, Libersha introduces her artificial spirit, Jen, to her loved ones, making it clear that he accepted her request for protection, though the young men's expressions carry a subtle melancholy. Aware that everyone's safety depended on finding Daniel as soon as possible, the princess heads toward the bustling Blanchette Square. Fascinated by the place's vibrant energy and the aroma of chicken skewers being sold, she laments being without hard cash at the moment, promising herself that she will return to buy some another time. Walking through the square, Libersha is enchanted by some handcrafted jewelry on display and praises the vendor's work. Without her coin purse, and knowing that paying with her imperial gold coins would put the humble lady in grave danger due to their exorbitant value, the princess decides to decline the purchase. Noticing the paleness on Libersha's face, the merchant shows kindness and gifts her a handcrafted gem that promises to bring health. Touched by the generous gesture, and knowing that the stone is an imitation, the princess thanks her deeply, having a sudden stroke of genius on how to solve her financial problem. Libersha runs back to the lady with her allowance money in hand and announces that she will buy the counter's entire stock. Given the merchant's shock at the exaggerated amount of gold, the princess gently closes the woman's hands, explaining that the remaining change is her way of saying thank you for the valuable gift she received earlier. While the lady weeps with gratitude, Libersha internally celebrates her cleverness for finding a way to convert her imperial gold into smaller coins and common change through that purchase. The princess's euphoria is short-lived. Suddenly, a strong dizziness hits her, and just as she is about to faint in the middle of the square, she is firmly caught by strong arms. She recognizes Dan's voice, who on that day displays black eyes instead of his usual reddish tone. The young man gently reprimands her for her lack of care, warning that walking around alone is dangerous even when possessing an artificial spirit as a bodyguard. Concerned about the young woman's obvious exhaustion, Daniel offers to escort her back. Desiring to spend more time by his side, Libersha insists that she has already recovered and can return alone so as not to bother him. But the expression of extreme concern on Dan's face makes her hesitate. The dialogue is brutally interrupted by a scream. They see a group of hoodlums forcefully pulling a girl away in a flash kidnapping. Libersha begins to channel her mana and calls for Jen. The spirit quickly obeys her and grabs one of the men, carrying him far away while he screams for help. Libersha tells the girl to get out of there and save herself, and so she does while shouting her thanks. Daniel praises her preparation, noting it was excellent timing. They were just small-time troublemakers, but it was satisfying. Despite this, Daniel's eyes seem incredibly distant. Libersha remembers that her country was responsible for the fall of Dan's homeland, Conquering it would be no easy task. But why does she feel so disappointed? I think I smell a romance brewing here. Well, we've reached the end of the chapters. For now. And there, do you want the continuation? So leave a like and a comment with a cookie. Until next time, my dears. Well, we've reached the end of the chapters. For now. And there, do you want the continuation? So leave a like and a comment with a cookie. Until next time, my dears.